is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Ahmad Hardy running to the right with Rowe, past the 30-yard line. Another broken tackle, and Hardy's still going. And fighting down the sideline. Nobody can tackle this guy. Give to Hardy. And again, Hardy keeps his feet moving, and he's into the end zone for the touchdown. Ahmad Hardy is unstoppable tonight.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the dude's running through people like he's a dump truck. I mean, he's a Clydesdale amongst a bunch of Phillies. It's unbelievable. I mean, how he scored on the one run when he left his feet, came back and had balance and scored. I mean, I ain't never seen that on tape before. So, dude's special, and there's not really much more to say about it.
That audio courtesy of ESPN and, of course, Eli Drinkwitz after the game on Saturday night as the Missouri Tigers start the season 4-0, something that T-Bone cannot relate to. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. T-Bone's still drowning in his sorrows on his way back from the University of Indiana, where the Hoosiers kicked his Illini's ass over the weekend.
Good news, though, BK, is that Indiana out here is beautiful this time of the year, so it's a great sightseeing spot for him to go to.
Yeah, no doubt. He can go to Indiana, enjoy himself out in Bloomington, and then watch his game get handled that way. We'll get into that here in just a moment. But we got to begin with Mizzou, man, because oh boy, that's a big win at home.
No, they didn't beat anybody, Brandon.
I had some nerves going into that one. You don't have your starting left tackle. You're still without your starting kicker. You're going up against South Carolina. This has been a series over the years. You know it's going to be close. I don't know how it's going to finish, but I know it's going to be really close one way or the other. They've got an NFL caliber quarterback on the other side. So I was out there in attendance alongside Bradford for this game. And you're just thinking about it beforehand. You're like, man, they're going to need Ahmad Hardy to have a hell of a football game. And guess what? That dude went out there and had a spectacular football game. He's unbelievable, man. To see that in person, it's amazing. He now has 37 missed tackles forced on the year. So he's broken 37 tackles this year. That's according to Pro Football Focus. On those 37 missed tackles forced, Alex, he has 458 yards after contact.
That's absurd.
To put that into context, there are only 5 other running backs in all of college football that have 450 yards total on the ground this year. Again, he has done that after first contact. Only 2 of those 5 are in the Power 5 conferences. So for him to have this kind of a season already, nothing short of remarkable. He looks the part of a Heisman candidate. Now, I know over on some of the Vegas odds makers, they don't even have him listed. I can't bet on him to win the Heisman right now if I want to, because they haven't listed his odds. It's baffling to me, but, second in the country in rushing yards, first among all Power 5 running backs. It's been a hell of a lot of fun to watch, and he's the number one reason for optimism right now if you're a Mizzou fan.
So Saturday, it's in the middle of that game, preseason blues is going on. So I have it here in the studio, and I'm watching it on mute. And I don't know how many people can relate to this, but watching a game on mute, it's very rare for me to be going, oh, that's what I did with Ahmad Hardy. And I tweeted out, I said, he's just pure entertainment. He's must-watch football right now when Mizzou plays, and it's mostly because this dude bounces off of tacklers like he's a ping pong ball.
It's crazy.
He scored that touchdown late in the fourth quarter where he bounced off of a guy he should have been down.
Not only did he bounce off of him, he was on top of defenders.
Yeah.
His legs were spinning in the air. It was like a spinorama.
And then earlier in the third quarter, I think he went through 4 different guys who had a hold of him and still picked up 20-plus yards. I mean, he's the reason you can dream on potentially what Mizzou can do right now, because he's just an out. Perbula was the one we were excited about because we haven't seen a quarterback to that level in a long time for Mizzou. And he was worth the entertainment value in the first 3 games. But when your defense isn't clicking, clicking or when your quarterback's not clicking, what do you resort to? Well, we resort to the best freaking running back in the SEC in all of college football right now. So we've talked about the room. We talked about this last week of how great they are with the 1-2 punch of Hardy and Roberts. But now the spotlight's on Ahmad Hardy because this should be somebody in a lot of people's mouths in terms of Heisman. But more so than anything, no matter the SEC opponent, Hardy isn't out because he's going to be able to batter ram his way through 3 different levels of defense on the other side.
Yeah, and week 3 was the national coming out party, right? But at the same time, you were doing it against Louisiana. BK, as we were discussing at the game on Saturday, now you are running headfirst, quite literally, into the SEC behemoths, okay? Say what you will about the offensive struggles this season of South Carolina. They have had quite a few of those, but by the same token, when you talk about that run defense, when you talk about now the caliber of competition into which Ahmad Hardy is going to be running, and that's the thing, you love the highlight reel worthy plays, you understand all of that, but this goes back to now. It certainly reinforces what the offensive philosophy is here for Missouri, and that goes to the offensive line. It goes to the stable of running backs, honestly, you have at your disposal, because as much as we want to laud Ahmad Hardy, as great as he was on Saturday night once again, the bell cow in the fourth quarter was Jamal Roberts because this coaching staff trusts him, it seems, in equal measure in late and close situations. And something that was a little under the radar, not in the eyes or through the eyes of Eli Drinkwitz on Saturday, but also when you think about the offensive line constitution, and ever since that first game, that result against KU, in which you still ran the ball really well, but you also weren't quite up to snuff collectively. Caden Green misses the contest. He's by all accounts, going to be out for a few weeks now. But Javen Richardson flows in there rather seamlessly at left tackle, and that is your identity. You are running to set up the pass. You feel confident about getting down the field vertically at times, but it's all about going forward with that running game. It's really phenomenal to see.
Yeah, it's their identity.
Yeah.
They know exactly who they are. It's something that I always like to see develop over time. I think it's really important as a team, whatever sport you play, to understand where your bread is buttered. And for Missouri, they know exactly what they're going to. They have a bunch of different stuff that they can do in the running game. Really, the identity is that outside zone, but they had some inside zone stuff that worked in this one. They had some pin pull. They had a lot of different things that they were able to do in the running game, and it all worked. And that's against a pretty solid run defense in South Carolina. They had success in that regard earlier in the season, and then they came into this game. They had no answers. There is no answer right now for Ahmad Hardy. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Now, we'll see some bigger tests as we continue. Oklahoma is a really good defensive unit, and they will make things difficult on Missouri. Texas A&M, very good defensively. Auburn, a little underrated, I think, right now on the defensive side of the ball. So there will be tough tests coming up, but so far, so good for Mizzou. 4-0 on the season. All you can do is win the games that are in front of you. Not only are they winning, but more often than not, they're covering the spread against these teams as well.
Great teams do that.
It's been a really good start to the season for Mizzou thus far. They've got UMass next weekend, bye week, then a literal bye week, and then you've got Alabama. That's going to be a big one, man. That is a contrast of styles. This is not Nick Saban's Alabama's teams. This is a team that's going to throw it all across the yard. And as we saw on Saturday, that can be a bit of an issue for Missouri's defense. We'll get into that later on as we go today, talk about some of the stuff because it wasn't perfect for Mizzou, but they did get the win. And offensively, Ahmad Hardy was an absolute stud. It was not as good for the Illini, Alex.
No.
T-Bone's been telling me for 6 months, this season for Illinois is all about getting to the college football playoff. You've got Luke Altmaier. You got so much returning production. This is a year where it is college football playoff or bust. Well, it looks like it might be going bust because we saw some issues for this team over the past few weeks. T-Bone has been talking about them. He talked about it with you last week, Alex, on the air on Monday. Western Michigan yardage totaled. Illinois outgained. That's the word that I was looking for.
We got there.
Outgained Illinois in the first half. That's not what you want to see. No. In the second half, they took care of business. Against Duke, first half did not look good for Illinois. And then they're able to pull away in the second half. You had all the turnovers, whatever. Saturday, they never were able to get things going.
No.
They didn't just get beat, Alex.
They got their ass kicked.
They got destroyed in every area. Special teams, blocked punt. Defense, had no answers for what Indiana had to offer. Indiana wants to throw it. All right, 21 to 23, 267 through the air, 5 touchdowns. ESPN has that QBR metric where 100 is perfect and you never see anything approaching that. 93.6 for Fernando Mendoza.
Wow.
About as good as you'll ever see in a college football game. On the ground, you want to run it? All right, we'll do that 50 times for 300 yards on the ground. All right, what about the offense? Did they get 10 points overall, finished averaging 0.1 yards per carry on the ground. Unfortunately, in college football, they include the sacks, which there were many of them for Luke Altmaier. Just had nothing. They had zero answers for what Indiana had to offer. Kudos to Indiana. They deserve all the credit in the world. Curt Cignetti is apparently a top 5 coach in college football based on what he's done the past couple of years since arriving with the Hoosiers. But, dude, Illinois was supposed to be above this. This looked very similar, but somehow even worse than what Missouri looked last year around this time when they traveled down to Texas A&M and got their butts whipped on the road against the Aggies.
Yeah. I mean, T-Bone told us this last week, Bradford, of how concerned he was on Monday after, they won, but they couldn't stop the run, and they also couldn't get their run game going.
True.
That wasn't a game that you look at and you say, they were missing one of their best secondary pieces and the defensive lineman got injured. There was zero competitiveness after their first possession. Their first possession, they matched with touchdowns, and you're like, okay, we might be in just for a shootout tonight. Then Luke Altmaier looked like he was in duress the entire game. Offensive line didn't know how to protect their running game at all. And defensively, it just looked like a ton of dudes who had no idea how to stop the game. So that was one of those that, if it's competitive, you can look at it and you say, hey, Indiana's just better, but Illinois gave them a good run. That wasn't even competitive. That was I don't know how you make this up the rest of the way, because the Big Ten, it's pretty top heavy in terms of Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and now Indiana just whooped your butt. This is one of those that you look back on and you say, yep, that was where we actually saw what Illinois is this season.
Yeah, they were on fraud watch, and they're a fraud right now. Now, they can turn that around this weekend against USC. If they win against USC, you can get this thing back on track, because then you basically just have to take care of business the rest of the way. Their schedule sets up in a way where I do think they can still go 10-2. It's going to be tough, but they could do it. Beat USC, beat Purdue, and then Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern. Those are all very winnable games for Illinois. And I didn't mention the Ohio State game because I think that's looking less and less likely. It was never particularly likely, but now, after that performance, it's tough to see a way in which Illinois wins that game. You can still do it, but your margin for error is gone. You basically have to win outside of that Ohio State game, and even then, it's not a guarantee. With that kind of a loss on your resume, things get really difficult. Because now if there are 4 other 10-2-ish or better teams in the Big Ten, you're 5th. Because you have the scarlet letter on your resume that almost nobody else in your conference will have, and certainly nobody worth a damn. That's the kind of loss that's an eye-opener for everybody associated with the program. That was embarrassing, man. They got absolutely demolished. Somebody on the YouTube chat said the 53-point margin of defeat is the largest since 1950 by a top 10 team against a non-top 10 opponent.
I mean, especially for the hype that was here. And I mean, T-Bone speaks for a lot of Illinois fans because T-Bone's die hard. The hype was real of feeling that this was a playoff team. And to what you said, BK, I mean, Indiana, if you look at their schedule, they're probably going to be a 10-2 team. So if you got 2 10-2, if the Illini just do their job the rest of the way, well, Indiana's got the upper hand, so now Illinois has to probably beat Ohio State or at least be competitive. So that was a devastating loss on the season for Illinois to, 3 games in, 4 games in.
Same thing for USC. That's why this game is so important, because USC might be one of those teams that could go 10-2 or better this year.
Yep.
So if you got Indiana, they're on there. Ohio State's on there. USC could be another. You've got them as a flip game here. The rest of the way, they've got Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon. You'd think they would win at least 2 out of those 3, probably. Worst case scenario, 1 out of those 3. The margins start to get very narrow here. And I didn't mention Penn State, which is another team from the conference that's expected to be very good. It's tough. It's hard to see the path for Illinois right now without a win this weekend. It's a true must-win game in every sense, if such a thing exists in Week 5 in college football.
Do you have to win convincingly this weekend? And I say that
win.
because of the okay.
Win. If you win, you go 10-2 this year. Let the chips fall where they may. But the biggest thing to me is you have to win.
And after a butt kicking like that, I don't think you need to worry about making it a convincing win. Just try and win after that embarrassment.
Just try to keep Altmaier upright, because we talk so much about continuity up front, right? And a lot was made about Illinois returning all 5 of its offensive linemen. But if there's nothing to be said about that, basically you're under siege nonstop, 7 more sacks this weekend. Nothing more to say.
Keep Altmaier upright, but also, maybe don't give up 500 yards through the air.
They've got a lot of issues right now over there in Illinois. T-Bone will answer for that tomorrow. He's decided not to come in today alongside Alex and Bradford on BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get into the week that was in the NFL. Whew, boy, my picks were not very good this week.
I think anybody's were.
Oh, my. Not great, Bob. Couple of upsets. Packers lose on the road at the Browns.
I can't wait to talk to you about that, buddy.
Yeah, that might have been a bit of an issue for some people in their survivor pools. Let's put it that way. Was not for me. I had the Seahawks. Never really had a sweat in that one at all.
It was up 14-0 in the first.
Luther Burden with a touchdown yesterday. Proud of our guy getting his first tutty. Nice one as well on the flea flicker. And then my Chiefs last night. It wasn't pretty, but guess what? They got the win.
Yeah, so, wins only matter, right, guys?
We'll get into that and so much more coming up in 15 minutes. If you guys would like to get involved in the show, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved. You can always check us out on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. Coming up next, that was just sad. The scene yesterday was sad. Nolan Arenado, John Mozeliak, both going out with a whimper. We'll discuss it next year on 101 ESPN.
Want more blues talk? Check out the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN. The guys bring you the latest news and nuggets on your St. Louis Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofing.com for a free inspection. Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast now at 101ESPN.com.
Reward Center is always loaded up with awesome giveaways. And right now, we have your shot to score an Igloo BMW heavy-duty cooler. Get entered to win at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
At first, it got awkwardly quiet, because I don't think anybody knew what was going on. And then when I walked off the field, it got a little better, thank God. But the fans they've always been great here. They want a winner, they want a good team that wins, and they want competitive baseball. And I want that for them. We want that, and I wish we could do it a little bit better the past few years for them. Fortunately, we just haven't been able to do that.
An awkward moment yesterday as Nolan Arenado walks off the field prior to first pitch. They had him as a late addition to the lineup, Alex. It was a late swap between he and Nolan Gorman. So as he's walking off, people are a little confused because it's the start of the game, and now you've got this guy that's walking off of the field. I get what Ollie was going for here, and he's done this in the past. He did it to great fanfare with Waino, with Yachty, with Albert. I think he gets these moments really well. This one there wasn't a moment to be had, if we're being honest. Mm-hmm. Nolan Arenado has, in the eyes of a lot of Cardinals fans, right or wrong, overstayed his welcome here in St. Louis. And he was a great player, had a couple of outstanding seasons here with the Cardinals. He was the guy that everybody wanted. He was the Great White Buffalo for this team. And since 2023, just hasn't been the same.
Yep.
Hasn't been the same experience. There hasn't been that same love affair between he and the Cardinals fans. Never had the playoff success that anybody would have wanted. And so as he walks off the field yesterday, all I could feel, and this is how I felt, I don't know how anybody else did, but all I could feel watching it was, this just feels sad. This isn't the way that it was supposed to end for Nolan Arenado here in St. Louis. There was supposed to be a celebration, whenever it ended, however long that may have been, for what he was able to accomplish, for the moments that he was able to provide, for the memories that he was able to give for Cardinals fans. And instead, it's like, yeah, came and went. Really good season. A lot of good moments that year, but otherwise, overall, a disappointment.
Yeah.
Relative to what the expectations were when he was traded here to St. Louis. So that was my perspective on it, and it sucks. I hate saying that, but it's honest to God how I felt yesterday as I watched it, Alex.
Well, for just hearing that audio again, doesn't it sounds like back in high school when the hot girl breaks up with you, but it's like, hey, I want you to go find somebody who's great for you. It's like, well, you would be, man. You would be. And you weren't. That's what happened here. It sounds kind of mean to say, but my reaction when I saw it was, good riddance. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, kind of.
The sad part, I think, for me was hearing Arenado talk, saying look, this team, it's rough to see an empty stadium. They want a winning team. I want it for them. That's the sad part because it should have never gotten to this. But I think this weekend was more of a good riddance, Cardinals, because Nolan, as much as it sucks to see this and you were supposed to be the guy, you're part of the problem. The
big part of it.
The areas that this team was supposed to succeed in was in the postseason. They got to it in the first few years. And guess what? You underperformed in both games that they played in the postseason, and then your talent dropped off, and they can never get back to the postseason. This is a season that you probably should have been competing for a playoff spot, but you were hurt / you didn't have the level of expertise that they needed. The same can be said about Paul Goldschmidt. And then on top of that, it's the John Mozeliak farewell. That one feels like good riddance because...
even more so.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of fans...
get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I think the fans were in the same spot, but it's again, you put this team in this position, so it sucks to see. It's sad that it's gotten to this point because I was the Mr. 95% for Nolan Arenado, but man, I can't be sad to see you go and this potentially be it when you're the reason why this team is headed towards a rebuild.
Yeah, as you look at the way that the standings are set up right now, Alex, you made a really good point. Cardinals are 4 games back of a playoff spot. The Mets are collapsing. They're 80-76, and they are now tied for the final wild card spot with the Cincinnati Reds. Alex, we saw the Cincinnati Reds, a week ago now?
Yeah,
that team is not very good. That team is pretty close to a mirror image of what the Cardinals have been so far this year. They have scored 30 more runs than the Cardinals this year. If you had anything resembling prime Nolan Arenado, and I'm not even talking about a 100% version of that, but even if you had the first year of Arenado being here in St. Louis where it was more power than average, it wasn't quite the same guy that he was for most of his career in Colorado, but he was good. It's like 20% above league average. Even if you just had that version of Arenado, Gold Glover plus 20% above league average offense, 35 home runs this year, this team's in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So for all of the talk about what went wrong and all these different things, and there's a lot of truth, right? Like all of that can be spread around. There's plenty of blame to pass around, and some of it goes to the guy that was also celebrated yesterday, and John Mozeliak. And by the way, credit to all the fans out there. It seems like he actually got a legit ovation. Yeah. He deserves that for stuff that happened earlier on in his tenure. I know things have gone horribly awry in recent seasons, but just as an aside, I was heartened to see that at Busch Stadium yesterday. But on the Arenado side of things, he's a big part of why this thing has gone sideways. If he's continuing to perform, the Cardinals are probably in playoff consideration for this season. And we're not talking about them going into a rebuild because they still have, if not a star, somebody that can at least pass the torch to whoever the next star is. He's a huge part of what's gone sideways. It's the pitching pipeline, and it's the star players that they traded for not lasting as stars as long as the Cardinals had otherwise anticipated. All right, coming up here in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line, and get involved in the show. You can also ask those on YouTube, as always, at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. Coming up next, we got to dive into some NFL quick hitters, including my favorite team. Not my favorite team. The team that I think is the best in the NFL right now. Losing against the Browns? Oof. How do I explain that one? We'll get into that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Make your picks for this week's Fastlane Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. Show off your football knowledge and see if you can top the Fastlane and the dudes from the Rizzuto show on the point for this week's top score. The top scorer each week scores a Bud Light NFL cooler stocked with 101 ESPN and point swag. It's the Fastlane and the Riz Show throwing down all football season long in the Pick'em Challenge. Enter your picks for this week now at 101ESPN.com.
The Fastlane Pick'em Challenge is refreshed by Bud Light, official beer of the NFL. Easy to Sunday, easy to enjoy. Enjoy responsibly.
Monday Night Football on ESPN. Ravens and Lions. Pregame at 6. Kickoff at 7:15. Your destination for the NFL in St. Louis is 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Blues drop back-to-back affairs. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Over the weekend, the Blues began their exhibition schedule by dropping a pair of games on Saturday. It was a shootout loss versus Dallas, and then yesterday on 101 ESPN, 4-1 at the hands of Columbus. Nikita Alexandrov did score. Justin Carbonneau and Milan Lucic assisting on that tally. St. Louis back in action on Saturday versus Chicago. That game will take place at Enterprise Center. Taking place tonight out by the Bay, the Cardinals beginning their final road trip of the 2025 season. After taking 2 of 3 from Milwaukee over the weekend, it'll be Michael McGreevy clashing with Justin Verlander at 8:45. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
I don't want to spoil too much, Alex, but coming up on the Fast Lane, they will discuss their Fast Lane Pick'em Challenge, and let's just say things didn't go well for me this week.
You don't? Hold on. How did Macaulay Culkin do it in the movie? That's what my reaction to that one is.
Yeah, it didn't go well. It did go well for us as a show / grouping, however you want to call it. Just not for your boy.
Yeah.
Not a good week on the picks for old
There's
BK.
a lot of people, though, that I would imagine expected a couple of teams to come out on top and now are wishing they would have gone the other way.
Big week for Vegas. They had a lot more success than the public bettors did. Let's start there. Packers losing on the road at the Cleveland Browns.
I can't wait for you to explain this one to me, Mr. Best team in the National Football League.
Brutal, man. Weird matchup. The Browns make games funky. They have a great defense, and they did just enough offensively. Judkins came in and added a little bit of a spark to the offense on the ground. But otherwise, I can't explain this one very easily. Their offense did nothing in this game. It was tough for Josh Jacobs to do much of anything on the ground. He finished with 30 yards rushing. Jordan Love, a couple of just weird decisions, way too many sacks. But again, some of this is just like Cleveland makes games funky. We saw this in week 1 against Cincinnati where they shut down the Bengals offense, which at the time was healthy. And now you see it against the Green Bay Packers. I think they're going to be one of those teams all year that I don't want to touch their games because I just don't know how they're going to go. Could be what happened with Baltimore. Could be what happened yesterday against Green Bay. I still feel great about the Packers. I did not feel great about the performance yesterday.
Yeah, look, I have no problems with the fact that the defense gave up 13 points to Cleveland because, as Micah Parsons said, sometimes teams ish the bed. And he's right. My bigger concern in that game has been my concern all along, and it's your offense if you're the Packers. Because the first game, that was a good one, but Josh Jacobs dominated, and so did the defense in that one. The second game, the tight end, Tucker Kraft, was insane in that one. And he didn't play in this one, if I remember correctly.
He did, but
it wasn't the same guy. What I'm saying is I don't know if Jordan Love is the guy that can make gold out of poop, essentially. It's not a saying, but I made it up myself.
Like it.
They've got to have Josh Jacobs at his best.
We'll workshop it.
I know. We'll work on it a little bit there. I brainstormed on the fly. They've got to have either Josh Jacobs win them the football game or their defense win them the football game. And to me, that's not a recipe for a team that can win the Super Bowl.
So you said you had a question for me.
I did.
About the NFL coming off of this weekend. What was that question?
If you guys had to rank the top 3 MVPs, who would they be right now in the NFL? I had this conversation with Grant last night, and here's mine. Josh Allen would be 1.
Okay.
Who did I tell him would be number 2? I'll get back to number 2. The real part of this question was the third person on this MVP list was Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think he has to be in your conversation.
And I looked at him and I said, where are we at? Oh, Matt Stafford was number 2 on that list. And I said, where are we at right now in the NFL that those 2 out of 3 are your MVPs? And Stafford is always kind of there, but Daniel Jones being in the MVP conversation, what does that tell you about where the NFL is right now?
I think I would actually disagree with your rankings. I think Daniel Jones right now should be second.
Oh, I didn't have those two. I just had the other two guys. I never really ranked them other than I said Josh Allen is the clear cut. Oh, and Justin Herbert was on that list too. Yeah, those were the guys that I said are MVPs.
I would probably go Allen 1, Daniel Jones 2, Lamar Jackson 3 right now. That would probably be my current rankings. Yeah, okay. We're 3 games in. None of this matters. Third one, if we're just talking about like best performance so far this season, we all know how this works. You're not going to get a running back in there. You could throw Jonathan Taylor. He's been amazing. If you want to throw him into the mix, I'm more than comfortable doing so. But those would be the top 3 for me right now.
But, I mean, Daniel Jones being in this conversation is just like what Sam Darnold was last year for the Vikings, where it was like he's just having a year nobody expected to happen, and he could run with it.
We should probably get to them. Let's get to the Colts, because they were another storyline coming off of this weekend, because, I thought that game was going to be, relatively speaking, close. I thought the line was a little bigger than it probably should have been, and then they just go out there and whomp them. The Titans looked disinterested in playing football. Frankly, they should probably fire that coach sooner rather than later. But Daniel Jones was once again super efficient, and Jonathan Taylor was great on the ground. They just look like a really good, well-coached football team. And it's making me have even further questions about my guy, Anthony Richardson, because it seems like the big problem for the Colts was they just didn't have a competent quarterback. However, I do want to say, so far this year, the Colts have played the Miami Dolphins, who are a train wreck.
Yep.
The Tennessee Titans, who should probably fire their coach, and the Denver Broncos, who I don't think are quite what we expected them to be, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So, forgive me, I would like to wait one more week. I would like to do with the Colts what the Fast Lane did with my Missouri Tigers, which is, all right, but who have you played?
We're still doing that with Mizzou. Mizzou hasn't really played anybody.
Next week, they take on the Rams on the road in LA. If you look the part against that team, the way that you have for the first 3 weeks of the season, I will give all of the credit that is due to the Indianapolis Colts. Right now, I think they're probably a playoff team. I don't know that I think anything higher than that of them. I don't personally think anything higher of that than them. But, if you play well again against the Rams, you can change my tune.
You know, it's funny you asked the Anthony Richardson question, and the first thing I thought of was, if you're the Colts, don't make the same mistake the Vikings made, where you had a guy who performed well in your system and they said, you know what, that was fun and all, but let's go with the younger guy that we have because we think there's a better upside. How do you think that's working out for them right now with J.J. McCarthy? Well, not good considering he's injured. So if I'm the Colts and Daniel Jones does this, and even if he's not this guy the rest of the way, but he's just somebody who gets you to be a 9-win team, maybe more, I'm not going back to Anthony Richardson.
No, not Anthony Richardson, but I would be open to the idea of changing quarterbacks. I think
but
you're
who do
seeing
you change
right now,
for? A free agent that, you're paying a ton of money to, and you can't.
Probably a draft pick.
Yeah, and you're slow playing at that point, because if you're decent this year, you're not getting a highly touted one.
I think I'm open to signing Daniel Jones, but I think it depends on the contract, right? If he's willing to take the Baker Mayfield deal.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Where Baker that first time around took like a 2 or 3 year deal, $25 million a year, something like that, then let's go ahead and sign up for it, and it doesn't tie either of us to each other for the long term. But for right now, it's working. Mm-hmm. We're 3 games in. I don't want to get out over my skis, but they've been much better than any of us could have possibly expected thus far. Big game last night. You want to talk about it?
You want to talk about it? Because I turned it off in the third quarter, and it wasn't so much the Chiefs dominating. It was, I saw that 4-set play of Russell Wilson where he hit the field goal bar on a throw to the end zone, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is the real. Anybody who was like, oh, the Giants might be good and Russell Wilson's fine. No, the Cowboys' defense might be one of the worst in the league this year.
Yeah, that's what happened. The Cowboys' defense is super bad. If you're an offense and you go up against the Cowboys and you don't score 30 points, something is horribly right with your offense, and you should probably fire everybody involved with that
Agreed.
offense. They did what they had to do. The Chiefs did not look very good yesterday. The defense did what it had to do to make you feel like, okay, maybe week 1 was the outlier against the Chargers. They've been pretty good on that side of the ball the last couple of weeks. The offense still has issues, though, man. It looked bad for about 2.5 quarters. Finally, they got things going a bit in the last 20 minutes of the game. But Tyquan Thornton is clearly their best receiver. Hollywood Brown is a shell of himself right now. Isaiah Pacheco can't run. It's weird. The injury last year clearly has affected him, and his vision has seemingly gotten worse. This team, as currently constituted, cannot win the Super Bowl. Thankfully, if you're a Chiefs fan, this is not what the team will be in 4 weeks. So we'll see. They had to win that game. It was as much of a must-win game as you can have in the third week of the regular season. Next week, you go up against Baltimore, and we'll see what happens. My expectation is that Baltimore will win that game. But, they got done what they needed to get done, and that's really what matters.
BK, you had a fair amount of optimism entering the season, I think, too, with respect to Pacheco. My question is, I'm with you there insofar as the vision. Something is different. Something is wrong. But why are you not even attempting to establish the run in the first half whatsoever?
Because
that was kind of mind-boggling to me.
The running game stinks.
Yeah, I mean, Pacheco
It's
is
terrible.
not good. Nor is Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt's slow. Pacheco can't see. He should get LASIK. Maybe that'll fix their running game.
I mean, your offensive line can't even allow Patrick Mahomes to have a couple of seconds to look downfield. You think they're going to be able to block for the run game?
It wasn't good. It just really wasn't good. Can we talk about the Eagles real quick before we get to questions and answers? 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers on the other side.
Yeah, how about my boy Jordan Davis? Oh, God, that felt so good, but also so bad considering that was a bad beat.
We'll get to the Vegas side of things tomorrow. But on the on-field side, the Rams are legit, and the Eagles are still the best team in the NFC until proven otherwise.
So you changed your opinion?
Yeah, I said this last week. Just like with the Colts, if you do that against the Rams, I will change my opinion.
Yeah.
The Eagles are doing what last year's Chiefs did, where it's like, yeah, we will do just enough to win these games.
It's what Bradford and
We're not showing you a single thing more. But if we need to go out there and score 30, we can. We don't really want to. We want everything to be a slog. We want this to look ugly. But yeah, if you force us to, backs are against the wall. Okay, yeah, in the second half, we'll go out there and come back from down, 26-7 at the time. And they found a way to do exactly that.
That's what Bradford and I said last week, because T-Bone kind of was like, I just don't buy into it. And it's like, man, they're just the team that doesn't have to really turn it on unless they absolutely need to. Like, Saquon was silent in that game, but you didn't need him because Jalen Hurts did it or the defense did it. They're the team that when they play the Broncos or the Giants or the Vikings or the Bears or the Cowboys, you'll be like, that's the team that people think are going to win the Super Bowl. But then when they play the Lions or when they play the Packers or the Chargers, you'll be like, oh, that's still one of the best teams in the NFC. And that's
right.
By the playoffs, I'll be worried about the Eagles just like I'm worried about them every single year.
And I don't think you're ever going to see a sea change when it comes to the philosophy there. But new OC obviously in place as well. BK, we talked about it with Alex really last week at some point insofar as when you're actually calling for fewer RPOs and then when Hurts actually has to throw it, take it to the air. I'd like to see Brown and Smith actually put out there at the forefront a little more earlier in games, especially with Barkley not quite being the same guy early on in the season. But that's the thing. You switch from one half to the other, and on a dime, this team does have it within itself.
Starvin Marvin texts in, T-Bone skipping out on a Rams and Illinois choke job. Coward. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Questions and answers coming up next.
St. Louis Blues hockey can be heard exclusively on 101 ESPN. Get the info you need before and after every Blues game with the First Community pre- and post-game show. First Community Credit Union. Take your best shot with First Community. And presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut. back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 636, guys, why aren't you honest about the Tigers? South Carolina gave that one away after they botched their first and goal from the 2 in the third quarter. I think this is something that I just disagree with in general about the way that we analyze college football. Guys, most of these games come down to a couple of plays. And the teams that you remember as being great that year make those plays. And the teams that you remember as not being great from that season don't make those plays. And one of the things that I'm going to give Eli Drinkwitz a lot of credit for, his teams make those plays, man. They just do. They find a way to make the plays when the games matter the most. Tennessee versus Georgia. Guess what? Georgia made the plays late. It came down to the very last couple of them, and they made them. So, yes, you're right. You want me to be honest about the game? It was close. The score probably doesn't even reflect how close that game was throughout. I was sitting next to Bradford the whole time, and I was saying, like, this is going to come down to a last-second something.
I thought it was going to come down to a kick, and I'm like, oh, God, they might lose this game.
We thought the exact same thing watching it, and it kind of did. They ultimately sealed the game with that 40-yarder. By the way, kudos to him.
Yeah.
But, yes, that was a close game. South Carolina made some plays. They made Mizzou feel, vulnerable, and then Mizzou made the plays when they needed to. So I'll acknowledge that it was close, but I think we underestimate how many of these games are close and how many games are decided by one or two plays here or there.
Well, and it's part of the reason why it makes it more of a meaningful game. It's not like they beat a ranked opponent there, but, South Carolina, in the SEC, you can't afford to lose back-to-back games. And the SEC had already lost one, so they were a desperate team that was taking on Mizzou, and it showed. But if I'm going to sit there and take credit away from Mizzou that played in a tight game that almost lost it because of South Carolina botching a play, Mizzou also forced South Carolina to botch that play because Sellers took a massive sack when you should not be taking a sack in that scenario. So, no, I'm not going to take away credit from a team that forced the other team to make mistakes.
Yeah, before this season even started, this team in South Carolina, guys, it was treated with the utmost reverence, right? If not in the top tier of SEC schools, it was right there. So make no mistake about it, especially with Sellers in that contest. You knew it would be nip and tuck heading well into the fourth quarter. That played out exactly, I think, as we thought it would, regardless of how the Vanderbilt game went.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from Dirk 3K. Guys, thoughts on Illinois the rest of the way? It looked awful, I know, but can they rally? They can, yeah. I mentioned this earlier today. If they win this weekend against USC, which is entirely possible, they can still find a way to make this thing interesting. But they're 7.5-point home underdog. USC has looked very good this year. It is the most balanced USC team that they've had since Lincoln Riley took over there. If you lose this one, you're probably done. Mm-hmm. I don't see a way where you can come back from that. At that point, you have lost back-to-back games in the Big Ten to really start out your Big Ten slate. You've still got Ohio State later on this year. Washington is no slouch. That's going to be a really tough road to hoe. So if you lose this game this week, it's over. Yeah. This is as much of a must-win game as you can have in week 5 of a college football season.
Yeah. Shout out to Dirk 3K, by the way. Met him at Blues and Brews on Friday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He and his dad, we got to say hi to him. He and his dad are monstrous. They're like 7 feet, and they stood next to us to take a picture. And I'm like, I've never felt smaller in my life. So shout out to you, Dirk, for stopping by and say hi.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 636. What's the closest comparable running back to Ahmad Hardy in recent college football history?
I saw somebody say Scadaboo from Arizona State on the text line, just for how relentless he is, where you try and tackle him and he just stays on his feet.
Low center of gravity. I can buy that.
Do you have one that immediately comes to mind for you?
Right off the bat, boy, it's tough because of the blend, right, of the physicality, the strength, and then the breakaway speed to boot. That's the biggest differentiator between a Schrader and a Hardy, because you liked a lot of these same qualities, but that next level speed once you get into the linebacking crew and beyond.
Kenneth Walker had some of this.
Yeah.
When he was at Michigan State. I I'd have to look through and to really kind of jog my memory on some of these guys. But
Nick Chubb didn't have that breakaway speed, did he?
oh yeah,
Did he?
oh yeah.
I just remember more the power from Nick Chubb where you couldn't tackle him when he
That's
was
the thing.
in Georgia.
It's such a unique style. You shouldn't be able to run this way with that kind of physicality and still have legit speed to break away.
Yeah.
It's very unique. Nick Chubb's an interesting one.
Gurley-
Somebody else brought up Ginty. Ginty has some similarities.
Gurley's the one that's the other comes to mind.
I was thinking of that.
Yeah.
Somebody said Hardy is basically Saquon Barkley.
Okay. Well, Hardy
really
is
go
essentially Derrick Henry.
Marshawn Lynch, there's some of that in him. Somebody else said Hardy is like Mike Allstott. I like that comparison 25 years later.
He's
Yeah, they're a little different, but he's just such a unique runner. He's a hell of a lot of fun to watch because of that. It's a throwback. Like this is the kind of running back that you would have expected to see in the 90s. And instead, you're seeing him in 2025 when college football has almost kind of gone away from this style of a runner. So it's a lot of fun, man. I've really enjoyed it thus far. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from Harrison's brother, Master. Guys, I have to put Dalibor Dvorsky fourth on my Blues prospect list. Do you agree with this? 1, Adam Jiricek. 2, Justin Carbonneau. 3, Otto Stenberg. 4, Dalibor Dvorsky.
After a week of training camp and preseason, which my opinions can shift on this, I would agree with that. I think Carbonneau would be number 1 on that list, though. Jiricek 2, Stenberg 3, Dvorsky 4. It was one game, and it's hard to judge him off of that, but Dvorsky just didn't do much to stand out to me in that one against Dallas, whereas Carbonneau has gotten a point in every single game. Stenberg was noticeable, in my opinion, last night, so much that they had to move Carbonneau to his line to generate more offense. And Jiricek has been very impressive overall. So
Did I hear Curb say earlier today that somebody within the Blues organization compared him
to Pietrangelo.
When did that happen?
So they were talking about it on the broadcast, and I don't know if they compared it to Pietrangelo, but they said he's got a lot of Pietrangelo in him. Look,
wow.
The crazy part with that is it's not outlandish because with the exception of that injury that kept him out for the half of season going into the World Juniors or going into that year's draft, he was one of the top defensive prospects in that draft. It was just the knee injury that hit him. Nobody really wanted to take a chance on him. I mean, he put 23 pounds of muscle on. Tim Taylor told us that. He's got an NHL level shot. It's the defensive awareness that you're working on, but he's 19 years old. So, yeah, I would say he's probably second on that prospect list behind Justin Carbonneau.
He's Alex Ferrario. That is Bradford Bruns, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, I want to talk a little bit more about the Blues. The biggest storyline remains the competition for the third line. How would Alex assess the players that are gunning for that third line job? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Tune in every Friday from 11 to 2 as BK and Ferrario broadcast live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. And presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea.
Monday Night Football tonight. An Underdog is the best place to select entries and win money all season long, including Monday Night Football tonight, where you can play right now in the state of Missouri. Alex, for this one, I've got a gimme over on my Underdog app. Love to see those Lamar Jackson passing yards and rushing yards. All I have to do is higher than 0.5. That's a gimme. I'm also going to take higher on DeAndre Hopkins receiving yards for tonight. I've got Isaac Tesla higher on 15.5 receiving yards, and I think David Montgomery's getting a rushing touchdown tonight, so I'm going to take that as well. 11-1 over on the Underdog app for Monday Night Football.
Man, that's what you know I love. And BK just laid out how easy it is to do. You get your entries right and win up to 5,000 times your cash with playing as little as $1. So download the Underdog app today and sign up with that promo code BKO and score $50 in bonus funds. A buddy of mine did that over the weekend and won his entry. BKO, the promo code, when you play your first $5 to score $50 in bonus funds. Millions of fans have already won billions making plays on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make plays, win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
The Redbird Report. Your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
All the way to the line. Mayu, near side. Carbonneau shooting it on. He scores! He looked away for the pass and shot it anyway. And Justin Carbonneau with a power play goal.
Yeah, you can tell he's a goal scorer. You know, like he looked to the middle and then he just let a shot go. And, you know, the goalie was thinking pass and he beat him 5-hole. That's a goal scorer's goal.
That's what it sounded like over the weekend, right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN, alongside Alex Ferrario, who is pre-post and intermission host right here on 101
We're
ESPN
back
for the Blues. That's Bradford Bruns. I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, a good weekend overall for Justin Carbonneau. Got participation in both games for the Blues. Feels relevant to me. They definitely want to see what he can do for them. The biggest storyline in camp is, always will be that third line winger spot. There's one spot really open up for grabs for this team right now. And Carbonneau, I don't know how realistic it is for him to be able to grab it, but he seems to, at every turn, be doing what is necessary in order to prove his worth.
Yep.
He did it at developmental camp, then he did it at prospect camp, then he looked good at the very start of training camp, and now you see him score a goal in the preseason. Full disclosure, I didn't see any of these games over the weekend.
What were you doing on Saturday?
I saw the highlights. There was a lot going on, though, between college football, NFL, Cardinals, everything else. There was a lot going on over the weekend, so I want to get your expertise on this because you were able to actually see it. What did you see from Carbonneau? Let's start there, and then we'll continue to the other guys that are in consideration for this third-line winger role.
Carbonneau doesn't look like an 18-year-old playing in the NHL. And I think that says everything you need that to be said. He still is very young in the sense of the defensive assignments when he's out there. Like, he's making some plays that you're like, oh, yeah, he just hasn't done this before. But he's got eyes and hockey sense in the offensive zone that I don't think guys like Texier or Matthew Joseph have. And that means something. Now, I don't know. It's still, in my opinion, an uphill battle for him to make this team out of camp. But, you know, talking to a lot of people within the Blues organization, there's a list of about 9 guys fighting for 2 roster spots, whether it's the third-line winger, the fourth-line winger, or just one of the guys in and out of the lineup. And out of all of the guys we've seen, with the exception of Oscar Sundqvist, Carbonneau has looked the best out of everybody. He's got the offense. You just heard Jim Montgomery say, like, that's a NHL goal scorer's goal. He needs to learn to get more inside the faceoff dots to take those shots. He was a little too on the outside the perimeter. But out of all of these guys, he's the one that I noticed the most. So I think this is a good step in the right direction of Carbonneau. We talked about this last week, BK. He's done everything you need to do. Now the next step is how do you look against NHL players? I'll be totally frank, both of these teams did not bring a whole lot of NHL guys to the preseason. So if he plays on Saturday, if he plays next week in those home games where you see better caliber talent, that's going to be a telling sign. But yeah, I would say Carbonneau has been a really impactful player in 2 of the games, which is a good step forward if you're him.
So I'm going to read off the names that I can see that are in consideration for this. I'm curious if I'm missing somebody.
Cool.
Because I've got 7.
Okay.
Yep. Joseph.
Yes.
Texier.
Yep.
Carbonneau.
Yep.
Stenberg.
Yep.
Dvorsky.
Yep.
Sonny.
Yep.
Lucic.
Yep.
Who am I
and then
missing?
2 more, Alexandrov, who played last night. A AHLer, but at least it's somebody that they're keeping an eye on because this is the last year that they control his rights. And then Kaskamaki. And Kaskamaki was good in that first game. I think Jim Montgomery brought him up a couple of times, but Kaskamaki, to me, is more of a depth first call-up type of player rather than make the team out of camp.
I'd be surprised if Kaskamaki makes it. I'd be surprised if Alexandrov makes it.
Agreed.
I'd be surprised if Stenberg makes it. If I'm being honest, I'd be surprised if Carbonneau makes it.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Dvorsky makes it, if I'm being honest.
I agree. I think it's really 2 spots for Joseph, Texier, Sonny, Lucic.
Yeah, and one of those spots, my assumption is it's going to be Oscar Sundqvist. So really it comes down to 2 spots for 3 guys. That's the competition. Now, Carbonneau can unseat those guys if he continues to do this. And my expectation is he's probably going to play in 5 of the 6 preseason games.
What do you think he has to do in order to make it? Because he's checked every box that you'd want thus far, but you have to do more than just check the box. You have to check the box and then show a little something extra to make them think, all right, well, we can't just maybe bring it. We have to bring this guy with us for the first 9 games.
Stay in the lineup. I think what he's got to do is he's got to continue to find himself in the offensive opportunity, scoring chances when he plays. Because as I mentioned, they play Chicago on Saturday, and then after that, they've got 2 more home games, one against Ottawa and then another against Dallas or Columbus, I believe. Those are going to be games that are going to be seeing higher level NHL players, like more NHL ready lineup. What does Carbonneau look like in those games? Because if he's continuing to create offense and in the offensive zone, then they're at least going to put it into consideration where it's like, is it worth a 9-game trial? But it also doesn't have to just do with Carbonneau, BK. To me, it has to do with the other guys. Because Alex Texier, I saw somebody just put this on the YouTube conversation. I think it was Alex they were going back and forth about Tech. Of course it was. It's an Alex guy. They were going back and forth about Texier and Joseph, who makes more sense. And they said, yeah, I'm expecting Joseph to look like one of the best players on the ice. He's 28 going up against AHL players. That's right. And that's what Joseph was the best player on the ice last night. But you know who was also on the ice that I didn't notice? Texier. So it's not just what Carbonneau does. It's what Texier doesn't do. Because if Carbonneau continues to create offense and Texier is just non-existent out there on the ice, then that's an easy guy to put through waivers. And then it goes into the path of what we talked about. Do you wait to sign Lucic and then bring him on board? But I think out of all of these guys, Joseph and Carbonneau were the 2 that have stuck out to me the most, mostly because of what they're doing away from the puck and how it generates offense. And then Lucic, I know a lot of people were down on Lucic.
I want to get to this.
Okay.
Let's talk about Lucic. I want to hear from Monty first.
Okay, good.
What he had to say about Lucic after the game last night. And then I'm going to get your impression as well, Alex. Here's Jim Montgomery talking about a man that hasn't played hockey in 2 years getting his first real time on the ice.
Thought he continued to get better throughout the game. He had that assist in the second period. He almost scored right after that and got our team some momentum.
What did you see from him?
I think exactly what Jim said. He looked like he was slow out of the gate. And I think a lot of people saw that and they took the first impression of, oh, okay, Lucic can't play. But Lucic has not skated in a game pace in 2 years. I expected it to look pretty soft in the first period. He was gliding around. It was kind of away from the puck. He laid a hit that wasn't really much doing. The assist that he created on Carbonneau's goal, and also in the third period, where if you go back and watch a couple of the highlights, he just parks himself in front of the net. That, to me, is what Milan Lucic is. Milan Lucic is not going to be fast. He's not going to be a guy that's going out there and trying to get into fights every single time. He's just going to be a presence. When he needs to fight, he will. But does he go to the front of the net? Does he keep plays alive? Does he lay the body around? And I thought he did that in one NHL preseason game. It will get better as it goes along. I think a lot of people were like, just cut him. The Blues want him to succeed. and it's just a matter of can he succeed. But he did not look out of place last night, where we've seen guys, BK, whether they're AHL players or PTO guys, that look out of place. Lucic didn't look out of place by the end of that hockey game, which is at least a flower in his cap.
Yeah, it's a starting point. He is one that I think really needs to have a good preseason, though. So if he got off to a sluggish start and you're now 2 games in, there's only 4 more opportunities here, man.
Yeah.
You only have so many chances in a game-like atmosphere to make an impression. And if for half of it he looked sluggish, he looked like he was just trying to get his feet wet, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
So now we get to see, how does he respond? How does he bounce back? The other thing is, we were talking with Mike McKenna on Friday. He mentioned, hey, it's one thing to go out there, have a good day of camp, have maybe a good preseason game. How's the body respond? That's another thing that we should probably be looking for this week, of how does he look at camp? Coming off of the first full week, are his legs responding? Is he holding up well? We'll see. We'll find out.
And I'll add this, because Joey mentioned this, because Joey and Curbs got a one-on-one exclusive conversation with Lucic yesterday before the game. And Joey told me on pregame, he's like, Lucic was very honest about being nervous about this. He's like, this is the first time I'm back. He's like, a lot of stuff has happened. He's like, I'm just gracious for this opportunity. I want to go out there and succeed because I think this team can be good. And as a coach, you've got to take that into consideration as well. So, yes, he looked sluggish in the first period, but I also looked at it and said, yeah, but he looked like he got back up to game speed by the second period. He created that goal that was that he started, that Carbonos got the assist on, but that is just the evaluation. You're right. What does he look like tomorrow in practice after the body went through that? And then what does he look like in the next preseason? He's another one that I would anticipate seeing in about 3 more of these preseason games to see what it truly looks like.
We're planning to be back out at Centene this week. Up in the air right now as to exactly which day or days we'll be out there, but we're planning to go at least once, maybe even twice this week, hoping to get a couple of players on the show, and we'll be able to see some of the guys skating this week as well. For Alex and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we're catching up with our Cardinals insider, Katie Woo, for the final time during the Cardinals regular season to talk about the send-off for Nolan Arenado yesterday, John Mozeliak send-off as well. Big news yesterday that we have not gotten into yet. Ivan Herrera is apparently going to be a catcher again next year. Again. So we'll get into that with Katie Woo. Lots to get into coming off of the weekend that was in at Busch Stadium. Katie Woo in 15 minutes. But next, Illinois got beat this week because of some of the issues that they showed previously on tape. Is Missouri at risk of something similar based on what we saw this weekend from their defense? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Miss the Blues game? Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day post-game podcast with a voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game on 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Curbside is presented by Blue Note Roofing, roofing, siding, and gutters, your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofing.com for a free inspection. 101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, presented by Ted Drew's Frozen Custard. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
No, I'm not discouraged by anything that happened tonight at all. I'm not discouraged at all. Ultimately, in this league, if you can run the ball, you're going to win. You're going to win a lot more games than if you can't. And taking stuff off of tape is a good thing, right? That's something you want. I mean, this can either be a highlight or a launching point for us. We can either be satisfied with our ability to win this game, or we can go back to work and launch ourselves into the rest of the SEC. It's great to be 1-0 with things to learn from. So ultimately, we got to fix some red zone stuff, and we got to fix some pass defense. So be good.
That was Eli Drinkwitz following Missouri's 29-20 win at home against South Carolina on Saturday with Alex and Bradford on BK. Drink was honest after the game on Saturday, Alex. He made it very clear, hey, we win. It's a good thing. Defense looked great against the run. Offense was obviously great on the ground. Missouri outrushed South Carolina in this game 285 to -9 for South Carolina. You heard that correct. They had -9 rushing yards overall in the game. Their longest rush on the day was 7 yards, and that was a Lenore Sellers run. Their running backs had 0 carries of more than 6 yards on the day. A really impressive job by the defense in the running game. In the passing game, it was a different story. And Eli Drinkwitz did not hide his frustration post-game with the secondary.
When we watch the tape tomorrow, I'm going to be on some secondary coaches' rear ends because this is getting ridiculous how porous our pass defense is. And that's got to get shored up in a hurry. And whatever we got to do to fix it, we're going to have to do. But there's way too many holes in our zone cover. We got bad eyes in the backfield. I'm not going to get negative. I'm not getting negative. But, yeah, that crap's got to get corrected.
God bless you, Drink. I'm not going to get negative, but people are going to get yelled at.
I love it because, man, it's what every Mizzou fan was thinking watching the game. And then sometimes you hear a coach and they're like, oh, no, it wasn't that bad. You know, tip your cap. Lenore Sellers is a good quarterback. Sometimes the other teams make plays. They're out there. They're getting paid too, right? And we could say that now in college football because everybody is.
No, they're not.
Drinkwitz didn't do that. He didn't shy away from the fact, hey, we got to fix this, man. Mm-hmm. I did find it really interesting. I think they switched up their cornerback and safety rotations in the second half. It looked like Catalan did not play much in the second half. I don't know if that was injury related or something where they said, you know what? Nuh-uh. We got to fix this. This has to get figured out. Drayden Norwood, I don't think played much at all in the second half. He was also in on some of these coverage breakdowns as well. So they need to fix it, and I don't know exactly what the fix is because their zone defense is horrible. I think some of it is they just don't really have cover safeties right now. They've got dudes that just come down and crush you whenever they're playing in the box. So I don't know what the fix is. They've got to get it figured out, and I mentioned this coming into the segment, Alex. We had seen some of the issues for Illinois popping up here and there, but it didn't cost them yet. Mm-hmm. And then over the weekend, every single one of those issues, well, it came home to roost. This is something that I'm going to be monitoring for Mizzou because a couple of weeks from now, you take on Alabama. That team is more than happy to throw the ball on every play. So if you don't get your coverage issues fixed 3 weeks from now, they'll take advantage.
Yeah, well, whether it's Alabama, and then, like, I don't know, I'm going way far, putting the cart before the horse here, but like Vanderbilt's another team that will just throw the ball no matter what. Pavia
will, Oklahoma will with Mateer,
Yes.
Arkansas will in that final game. Arkansas has some issues, as you saw over the weekend, but their quarterback, Talon Green, he can sling it.
As excited as we are, that was a concern of mine because that play, it was the first touchdown that South Carolina scored. I think it was Jacobs that got it. It was like a 50-yard launch downfield. And, I mean, Jacobs was just standing by himself. The receiver was at least 5 yards behind him. And I looked at Grant, who was in studio, and I'm like, how does that happen in an SEC game? because Sellers is incredible, but you shouldn't be that wide open. So I'm glad to hear Drink react that way, because to me, that's what winning coaches sound like in the
100%.
SEC. Like, there's no I'm going to be positive. This was a good game and we'll work on it. No. There's going to be defensive line coaches that I'm going to be on their butts this week, because that cannot happen as we move forward.
It is worth noting, the defensive line, I had some questions early on in the season. Hey, are they going to be as good as some of their pedigree suggests that they... Dude, Zion Young was unreal in this game. The box score might not indicate it. 3 tackles, 1 sack, 2 TFLs. He was everywhere. That they could not block him from start to finish. They had no chance of blocking him. Up front, Chris McClellan had a couple of big plays as well. A guy that I don't think gets enough love for the way that he's played so far this year is Webb. Sterling Webb was great at that game. Had a couple of really disruptive moments. So defensive line was awesome. And some of those plays, including I think the one that you're talking about, if I remember correctly, that's the one where they missed on it, right? They didn't connect. That's because of the pressure. So the front four and the secondary, they work in tandem. If your front four is consistently getting pressure, well, it takes a lot of that pressure, no pun intended, off of the secondary, because they don't have to cover for as long. And it's harder to hit on some of those deep shots. So that helped them out at times, especially in the second half as they started to clamp down a little bit more against Sellers in that offense. But they've got to get this thing figured out. The pass rush can only do so much. Eventually, the corners have to hold up.
Yeah, and last season when you had Johnny Walker Jr. as of yet then, too, it was able to mask, I think, some of the issues you still had in the secondary. That was the primary concern last season, BK. It was the primary concern entering this year as well. And the problem is that I don't exactly know from whom you draw now when it comes to internal candidates, because you knew the teams were going to pick on Stephen Hall. They were going to pick on Toriano Pride, the latter of whom unfortunately just hasn't been able to live up to the expectations since coming over from Clemson. And I don't think either that this is contained. It's relegated only to the secondary, because this team, the front seven, when this unit collectively is getting downhill and getting that penetration. This also applies to a Josiah Trotter for that matter, too. You tend to get lost in coverage. We talked about it. We heard about the eyes in the backfield there. So probably, though, in the secondary, I'm really not sure how you shake it up, because you've exhausted virtually all those options. It's going to be an ongoing issue throughout conference play.
And look, if that's the weakest part of them, then you got to give to get, and your safeties aren't going to be able to cover those deep balls. Well, you got to be aggressive as you can. But if you're going to be rushing the quarterback nonstop and trying to pull up those sacks and those tackles for loss, I'll take that. You're just going to have to hope your offense keeps in line too.
It's a boomer bust defense. It's been that way for a little while. Josiah Trotter was really good against the run. He's excellent against the run. He's got some issues in coverage. And there are times, you mentioned it, Bradford, I think it's a good point. There are times where he bites up in those play action spots and it gets him beat behind him. So you're leaving some of those zones a little bit more open. Can we talk about Lenore Sellers for a second? Because he was a pretty big talking point coming into the season for some of us here on the show, most notably me. I love the kid. I think he is a very special talent. And last year, I thought he was going to take another step from what he was and potentially be Heisman consideration good this year. He hasn't been.
No.
And in that game against Missouri, there were a few moments where his decisions led to them losing that game. Second and goal from the 5-yard line, you cannot take a sack there. You absolutely cannot take a 12-yard sack in that spot. Later in the game, they had a situation where they were in like roughly field goal range. Their kicker isn't great, so maybe not. But I think they were at like the 30, and then he takes another 10 to 12-yard sack, and he basically takes them out of field goal range there as well. These are the plays that I talk about with Lamar all the time, Alex, that we get into the playoffs, and it's not interceptions. It's not even necessarily fumbles at this point in his career. It's the sacks, where he's at the 30-yard line, team is getting ready for a field goal, it's 3rd and 7, and he tries to make too much out of it, takes a 7-yard sack, and now you have to punt it. Like, that's the stuff that comes back to bite you. And in these games where you're going up against a team that is similarly talented to you, Bo Prabula didn't take those sacks. Bo Prabula had one bad play in this game, but otherwise he was almost flawless in his decision-making process. That is where Sellers still has to improve. There were a couple of plays where it's just decisions that he's missing on, because you could see the arm talent. Oh boy, can you see the arm talent with him. It is unique, the way that he's able to rifle the ball into some of these very tight window throws. And the legs, you saw that as well on Saturday. The guy is a special runner. It's just the decision making. It's got to get fixed. He's not a pro right now. This guy's not ready to go to the NFL next year. He needs some more time.
That was the first thing I thought of, because on the ESPN broadcast, before they start the game, they show sellers and it says projected first round draft pick in this upcoming draft. And man, you hear the hype, but then you watch the player and it's like, you're not making first round draft pick decisions in a game like this, because that sack was the biggest one for me that he took when they were in the red zone to score a touchdown. And I think it was the go ahead touchdown. And he took that massive 15-yard sack. And it's like, man, that's not a first-round draft pick decision. That's a guy who's still learning the game decision there. So the hype is real in terms of his arm, his legs, his decision-making, but he's also making questionable decisions that looks like he's still raw.
Yeah, it's the suspicious decision-making and then the lack of decisiveness all the way around. We think about it down the stretch. Guys, in the fourth quarter, South Carolina, the 2 3-and-outs there, you had the opportunity, obviously, to make some things happen, but the mechanics, too, the technique. BK, we talked about it. Even in the rare instances when he had the ability to actually get his feet set, so many things, fundamentally speaking, right now seem to be holding him back.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. But next, Katie Wu, Cardinals insider for The Athletic, here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN salutes our nation's military. Join the Fast Lane next Thursday, October 2nd, for a special live military appreciation broadcast from 2 to 6 p.m. at Scott Air Force Base for service members, their families, and anyone currently on base. Join us for this special Fast Lane Military Appreciation live broadcast next Thursday from 2 to 6 p.m. at Scott Air Force Base. Brought to you by Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation. For heating repairs and maintenance, visit aircomfortservice.com. Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards hit the West Coast one final time. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight at 8:45, the Cardinals beginning their final road swing of the 2025 season. It'll be Michael McGreevy up against San Francisco veteran right-hander Justin Verlander. From baseball to the ice over the weekend, the Blues dropping each of their first two preseason affairs 4-1 against Columbus yesterday afternoon on 101 ESPN. Chicago hits Enterprise Center over the weekend. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and Bradford on BK, an eventful weekend out at Busch Stadium where the Cardinals won 2 out of 3 against the Milwaukee Brewers. They also had their send-off of both John Mozeliak and Nolan Arenado. Katie Wu in attendance for it all, and she has her coverage over at The Athletic. You can always follow her on Twitter as well, at Katie J. Wu. She joins us today as she does each and every Monday on BK and Ferrario via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Katie, how you doing today?
BK, welcome back. It was an eventful week, but looks like your vacation went nice per Instagram. Good to be back in San Francisco, and they welcomed everyone here with an earthquake at 3 in the morning. So that was pretty cool.
Good.
Yeah, so that is probably not the way that you wanted to start your day, but alas, here we are. Final week of the regular season, Katie. We've made it. Let's start with yesterday. Some of the, I guess you'll call them festivities for the Cardinals. What was your impression of the send-off for both Nolan Arenado and John Mozeliak?
I thought the festivities were a little subdued just based on the crowd size. But, I mean, as we've seen over the last 2 months at Busch Stadium, that crowd size was kind of to be expected. I think fans have pretty much made their opinions known to ownership about how they feel about the state of the franchise. I would have liked to see, to be fair, I don't know what John Mozeliak or Nolan Arenado wanted out of this. I don't know if they wanted, this is exactly what they wanted, or if this is something the Cardinals wanted to do. I thought it was very cool for Mo's family to come out and for Mo to throw out a first pitch, considering where he started his career, throwing batting practice for the Colorado Rockies. I thought that was kind of a full circle moment, but there was not a lot of celebration, really. There was not a lot of recognition. Even going back to Miles Michaelis getting pulled in the 6th so he could walk off to a standing ovation, it took a while for the fans in attendance to really realize what was going on. And that's to say nothing about Nolan Arenado, who, over his 5 years here has been a cornerstone. He's been a franchise player. And I thought that was very cool that manager Ollie Marmol came out there and gave him that start and allowed him to walk off to a standing ovation, but it didn't hit the same because the stadium was half empty. Also, to go back to that, they better trade Arenado now after that because it's even more awkward this year if they don't. So all in all, it was about what I expected, but it was still disappointing because I think the fans at the stadium always know what's going on and always give players or personnel proper recognition. And while the fans in attendance did do that, there just wasn't enough of them.
Katie, how do you think those two specifically, John Mozeliak and Nolan Arenado, are going to be viewed by Cardinals 10 years from now?
I think it's always about what have you done for me lately, and both of them in their respective careers were obviously completely different in who they were and who they are. Mo has a historic run, and you can be upset over the last 3 seasons. I totally get it. You can be frustrated over the state of the franchise, but what he did for the St. Louis Cardinals is unheard of, not just in baseball, but in professional sports. That stability for that long. I mean, we were joking last month that he'd been with the Cardinals longer than I'd been alive. And that just doesn't really happen with such a high turnover of professional sports. I mean, just 2 losing seasons under his entire tenure. Was a scouting director for Yadier Molina, for Albert Pujols, oversaw the 2011 World Series team, made a ton of really good trades, including the Arenado trade. At the time, that was exactly what the Cardinals needed. And in 2022, you had Albert Pujols coming back for just $2 million. You had 2 MVP candidates in the top 3 for the National League. And I think when you looked at Nolan's career, he would certainly want it to be better overall, but there were only 3 postseason games he could have played in. No one would have seen or could have forecasted how the 2023 season went down or what was going to transpire after that. I think he'd be the first to say that he was disappointed, especially offensively over the last couple of years, and certainly wanted to do more in those limited postseason games. But you got Gold Glove defense for multiple seasons. You had a potential National League MVP campaign in 2022, 230-homer seasons. I personally, I understand the frustration at how both careers are ending here in St. Louis, most likely. But I think overall they were successes if you look at why they were brought here in the first place.
We're talking to Katie Wu here on 101 ESPN. Katie, I agree with what you said. It would be awkward if Nolan Arenado was back again in 2026. And part of that is because of his comments from yesterday. Like he said afterwards, I think they need to go in a different direction and it's best for all parties involved. But that also requires some give on his side. The Cardinals thought that they were getting rid of him last offseason, and he said no. He said he wanted to come back here to St. Louis. So what is your understanding on how this could all play out in the offseason? Do you think he's going to be open to new teams? How do you see this thing going? I know it's very early, but what's your early impressions on it?
I think my early speculation is that he almost has to be. You can't go into this offseason, given the season that he had, spending 6 weeks on the injured list, having another offensive decline, and keep your teams at those 5 that he identified. I don't know if the Yankees are going to be in the market for a third baseman, or the Red Sox, or the Dodgers, and then you also don't know if they have interest in him, and that also matters. So it's going to be a two-way street. Nolan's going to have to expand his market, and the Cardinals are going to have to be willing to eat more money. And I get the argument from fans that say, why would this team trade a Hall of Fame third baseman? They need veterans. They need his performance. And you see what he's done at third base in the last 2 weeks he's been here. I mean, it's been a dramatic change in the infield defense. But two things can be true. The organization can be doing what's best for them long term in terms of embarking on a rebuild and trying to improve through the draft and development process. And that can also be what's not best for Nolan Arenado in his career. He'll be 35 next year. He's made it very vocal. He wants to play for a postseason team. There's going to have to be give and take from both sides, but I don't think Nolan's incorrect in saying when you're looking at the direction of the Cardinals and where they're going, it makes sense for them to part ways. It made sense for them last year, but they could be a little bit more particular in what they wanted. This year, both teams, whether it's ownership and whether it's Nolan's camp, have to be more understanding in order to get this trade done.
So take a walk with me down this hypothetical path, though, Katie. Nobody wants Nolan Arenado, and the Cardinals aren't willing, or the Cardinals can't find a taker for Arenado. Do you see any scenario where they say, look, he can't come back, we just need to buy him out and get rid of him?
That would be so unlike Cardinals ownership to do. And I think that there will be a suitor for Nolan. It just might not be the suitor that he originally identified. I don't think the Cardinals are ever going to get to a point where ownership says, hey, let's eat the remaining $40 million and dump a Hall of Fame third baseman. I just don't see them doing that. But I do have some sort of comfort in thinking that both sides acknowledge what changes need to be happen and they can learn from what happened last year. Also, you're dealing with a brand new President of Baseball operations in Chaim Bloom, so there's a different method of going around that. It comes back to Nolan expanding his teams for sure. He has to. That full no trade clause, he earned that for a reason, but he can't keep this pool to just 4 or 5 teams where he's honestly probably not a fit for the majority of them. And Cardinals ownership cannot be as aggressive as they were with Mo in terms of what he was allowed to take on contract-wise and what he needed to get rid of. They have to bend there a little too.
Katie, as we continue along some of the storylines from this past weekend, those were kind of off-field story. One on-field storyline was the Ivan Herrera stuff, where he hits the home run, and we all know what he can do at the plate, but it's his position that became the talking point. And apparently he's going to have surgery to remove floating things in his elbow, and he's now going to be a catcher again.
I did a spit take on this one.
Take us through what you learned this weekend about Ivan Herrera's future potentially behind the plate.
So I think we all know who Ivan Herrera is as a hitter, right? That's a bat that you can build around. He's a real impact right-handed bat that the Cardinals have been lacking for a while. But with almost every player currently on the roster, there are questions about them overall, and that defensively is what we've seen from Ivan. Whether he can be a full-time catcher or not is something that the Cardinals really want to figure out over the offseason. Herrera met with Ollie and Chaim Bloom and had a kind of game plan while acknowledging that he does need that minor surgery, and he'll probably undergo that almost as soon as the season ends. Their hope is that will help build the arm strength and stability, but there's also some real adjustments that need to take place in terms of game planning and preparation. And that's something that you have to learn and you experience in real time. But if you can't go out there, if you're Ivan Herrera, and learn game planning on the fly, there has to be a real cognizant effort over the offseason to adjust how you prepare for each game and to just know how to take in more knowledge. I don't think it's a question of Ivan not being prepared enough. I think he cares a lot about this and wants to be a good catcher. It's does he have the best methods to learn these scouting reports and learn how to adjust to mid-game, and what can he learn over the offseason to better prepare him that going into 2026? The Cardinals have such depth in their system where they don't need him to be catching 120, 130 games, right? If he can catch, let's say, 80, and maybe that's being generous, that frees up the DH a little bit. That frees up positional flexibility, which, as we know, has been a main discourse of topic this season. So I don't think, and I could be wrong here, but I don't think the messaging here is Ivan Herrera is going to be our full-time catcher next year. It's Ivan Herrera needs to learn to be a little bit better so we can use him behind the plate, but we have better options, and we can tandem the catcher role next year.
Alex, I actually like it. I think it's smart. I don't know.
Sense.
I don't know if it'll work. We'll see defensively. Like they're going to have to be a little more lenient with what they accept back there than what they have been previously. But his bat plays best behind the plate.
Well,
he's a really good hitter, but it looks like maybe there's not that elite status. And if that's going to be the case, like, hey, going behind the plate makes some sense.
Well,
to
and
me.
here's where my spit take came in, though, because I'm thinking it's like, okay, why can't the Cardinals just decide on one thing and leave the guy in a position so we can work on it, which we've seen before.
He was hurt this year.
And then two, yeah, but he wasn't early on, and then they went away from it and said, well, now he's a DH or maybe he's an outfielder. And then the other one, I spit take on this one too, Katie, is like, cool, so are we back on the Jordan Walker's a right fielder thing?
What do you mean?
Because
I don't think that was ever a question.
Burleson's going to be an outfielder. Are they going to move on from Newbar? Are they going to move on from Walker? They got a lot of options still in the outfield.
They do, and that's why I think this offseason will be hopefully so much different than last year because they have some actual changes to make. They have players whose futures are up in the air. You look at like Newbar, for example. To me, and this is just my opinion, he's a guy that'll be a free agent after 2027. It doesn't seem likely that the Cardinals will have fully finished their rebuild by then. If they have not deemed Newbar someone that's going to be part of the future and can be an impact player come 2028, if that's not someone they want to pay, he has value. You can move him. Same with Donovan, though. I think that's definitely more of an argument. I think with Newbar's a little bit more clear cut, just because Donovan and his skill set and what he's brought to the Cardinals, it would be hard to fathom trading him away. But one thing that I think needs to be expressed about this rebuild season, or this transition season, is that the Cardinals do feel like they have answers on a lot of their players. Some of their players took some significant steps forward, like Herrera, like Donovan, like Mason Wynn. Some of them did not, and that's also an answer, too, in terms of who they can plan around. So did Walker have the season that the Cardinals wanted? No. Did Gorman? No. Are those answers in terms of where they fit in next year in terms of playing time or what this could look like or who they could look to move? I think so. And Chaim Bloom has a lot of work cut out to him because the last thing that this Cardinals team can do is run out the same 40-man roster with all of its depth issues and all of its lack of performance and redundancies. There will be changes. Right now, it's just on who is it going to be. They've identified Herrera as someone they'd like to build around so we can cross him off that list, but there are plenty of questions about other guys.
All right, Katie, last question for you. We'll get you out of here on this. You had a really good piece that landed, I think this was on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, saying basically, hey, the Cardinals are ready. It's rebuild time here in St. Louis. And you talked to a number of people within the organization that told you that this is going to be the case. As you went through the reporting for this story, what did you learn about the Cardinals' plan for this rebuild and how long fans should be expecting before this team is legitimately in contention again?
So I think that's the biggest thing that we have to clarify is if we're going to define contention, the Cardinals were maybe one starting pitcher and a couple of pieces away from contending in this National League. That would be for the wild card. They're going to be 20 games out from the Brewers in the division. They'll finish in fourth place most likely. That's not the level of contending or the definition of contending this organization wants. When the Cardinals say they want to return to contention, they mean like the perennial contenders that we saw in the 2010s, where they had a top farm system and they continued to win at the major league level, and they weren't competing just for the wild card participation trophy. They were competing for National League pennants, right? That's where the Cardinals want to be. So I get some fan pushback saying, well, they are contenders, that they would just do this at the trade deadline or just get one more starting pitcher, they could contend. Yeah, but they're not legitimate contenders by any means. Like, no disrespect to the Reds, who've done a nice job really pulling together in the second half. But if you look at that team, are you confident with the Reds matching up against the Dodgers? Probably not. So the goal is to get the Cardinals back in that conversation. And it's going to be a little difficult because they are mid-market. They're not the same market as L.A. or New York or Philly. But that's what they mean when they say they want to return to contention. And that's going to take time, especially with ownership already deciding what that process is going to look like through drafting and developing. That's probably what's best for their market. That's also going to add some time to it. If you want a timetable as for how long this is going to take, just look at to what Chaim Bloom's contract was announced as. Starting in 2026, it's a 5-year deal as president of baseball operations through 2031. That means ownership is saying, or conceding basically, okay, this might take some time, but we're willing to be patient because we want the end result to be another great era of Cardinals baseball, not just doing enough to get in and hoping to get lucky. And that's kind of where, at least since I've been here, where the method was based on the roster and the depth of the organization. You know, if you win and get in an expanded format, maybe you'll get hot. The Cardinals don't want to rely on that anymore. They want to actually be threats, and that's why I think this will take a little bit longer.
Katie, appreciate the time as always.
Can't wait. It's going to be a fun 5 years.
Enjoy yourself out there in the Bay Area. We'll talk with you again next week as we recap the 2025 season.
You got it, guys. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. It's Katie Wu joining us as she does each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario, joining us live from San Fran, where the Cardinals are taking on the Giants, 3 of their final 6 games.
Ooh, good.
6 games left, man.
Here's a scenario for you. I know today's not a more likely to happen. More likely to happen. You and I are on the air by the time the Cardinals contend for the playoffs, or Cardinals will get to the playoffs before 2030?
I mean, I would hope both.
Me too, but more likely to happen is how you play the game.
I mean, my contract's up in 2.5 months, man. There's no guarantee I'm back on the air when they play again in 2026.
Interesting.
I kid, kind of. I don't know. I think that they could get back into the playoffs sooner than people are expecting. I do like that she clarified that, because that is something that I was wondering about, is like, what's going on? Are they really not thinking that they can be a playoff team for 3 years? Because that seems crazy to me. I know people are going to laugh at this, but I would have laughed at the Reds being a playoff team this year as well. I think the Cardinals could be a playoff team next year if things go their way. The bar is not particularly high, man. This third wild card makes things pretty easy on these organizations to quote-unquote contend. I agree with what Katie said there, but that bar is so incredibly low. If we're talking about really being a contender for something meaningful, yeah, I could see how that takes you 3 years.
But that's what matters more to me. I don't really care about getting back into the yes, I care in terms of content to where we can be talking about a team that maybe is in the playoffs, but I don't want a team that gets back to where they were 5 years ago that was just kind of like, oh yeah, we could get in and see what happens. I want to get to the point where it's every year it's what Ollie said. Every year you expect to be one of the better teams and go out there and beat the hell out of the opponent.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line to get involved in the show. I do have a little bit of news to pass along. Don't know if you guys saw this. Auburn has just announced that Bruce Pearl is expected to retire. His son, Steven, is going to take over as the head coach for the upcoming season. That is massive news in college basketball, and it seemingly came out of nowhere.
Exactly.
I had seen nothing about this prior to this tweet that says, hey, he's done. Wow. Huge news in the college basketball scene. I don't know what led to this. I don't know if there was I don't even want to speculate. I don't know. I don't know what led to this, but wow, that is a big deal in the SEC. That is a big deal in college basketball. One of the all-time great coaches, whether you like him or not is another story, but one of the all-time great coaches in the sport hanging it up while still seemingly in his prime. I mean, this is a team that had been contending for Final Fours over the last 3 to 5 years. That's crazy.
It was the number 1 seed overall last year going into the tournament. Huge storied run, well over 200 wins at the school. And as you said, basically coming out of nowhere. Now, he had spent over a decade there actually having established himself. But yeah, for there to really not be a real, I would say, succession plan moving forward, this is very interesting, totally out of left field.
Apparently, some people on the YouTube chat are saying there's some speculation that he's going to be getting into politics. So I guess there you go.
I wonder what
Wouldn't
that
be
does.
the only former Auburn coach in politics.
I wonder what that does to the transfer portal.
Yeah.
A lot of guys from Auburn that say, well, Bruce isn't going to be here.
I don't know how this works. Do you know how this works, Bradford? I apologize. I'm not up on the rules on a coach retiring in September. Are his players eligible to transfer now?
At this point, I believe the cutoff has been in place, right?
I would think so.
I don't think you're going to see this groundswell of movement now.
Interesting. Yeah, because I agree with you, Alex. Like, in theory.
Because, I mean, if I'm a guy that was recruited there, if Bruce Pearl's not here, I don't know if I want to be here.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one in the college basketball landscape. All right, he's Alex. That's Bradford. I'm BK. Coming up next, Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN.
back. It's Thursday Night Football. Cardinals and Seahawks. Pregame at 6:30. Kickoff 7:15. Your destination for the NFL in St. Louis is 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK. It is time to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. They are online at victorymenshealth.com. When you get over there, you can find out everything that they have to offer, and maybe something they offer over there will help you unlock your inner champion today. Could be due to the low testosterone symptoms, could be erectile dysfunction, maybe it's weight loss goals that you're trying to meet and you just can't get it done on your own. That's all right. Sometimes we all need a little bit of help. Well, they can do that for you at victorymenshealth.com. When you get over there, you can book that first appointment today. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and then tell them what it means for you to unlock that inner champion. There are 4 great locations across the St. Louis area to do so. O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Sunset Hills, and my personal location out there in town and country. Go ahead and check them out today. It's online at victorymenshealth.com. They'll unlock your inner champion at victorymenshealth.com. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The junk drawer with BK and Ferrario. Alex. So as you know, I went to the Mizzou game over the weekend, covered it from the press box. I was sitting right alongside our guy Bradford Bruns up there. So the way that the Mizzou press box works, there's two different sides to it. One side of the press box is where, your typical beat writer. So like Gabe DeArmond is sitting over there. Eli Hoff is sitting over there. That's where the day-to-day operations, those guys are on one side. And then on the other side is primarily twofold. One, the student reporters that are covering the team for KOMU or KCOU, whatever. The student reporters, and then the away reporters. So guys or gals that are covering South Carolina. They'll sit on that side of the box as well. So I got there relatively early on Saturday. I wanted to make sure, I'm all set up, ready to go beforehand. So I'm in the press box a solid 2.5 hours prior to the start of the game.
Jeez.
Okay? Game days in Columbia can be a little difficult to navigate.
My goodness, I
wanted to be there 90 minutes at a minimum before, because that's when you go down on the field. You can get all of your pregame stuff down there. So I'm sitting up there, and it's mostly students that are around me, all right? So I'm just hanging out, watching the whatever game is on at that point in time. I forget at this point. And one of the kids in front of me notices me, and I have one of those moments. Many of you have probably had this moment before, too, where I realize just how old I now am. So the kid comes up to me and says, "Hey, BK?" I said, "Yeah, man, it's good to meet you. What's going on? Blah, blah, blah." I said, "Hey, I'm writing for Rock M Nation. I actually started writing for Rock M Nation. I started reading Rock M Nation when you were there. I grew up reading your stuff."
Oh.
I was like, hold on. What do you mean you grew up reading my stuff?
Yeah.
I'm not that old, man. I'm only 31.
He was inspired.
Yeah. And then I thought about it. Man, I started writing for Rock M Nation almost 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So this kid could have been 10 years old when he first started reading my stuff. And it just gives you this moment of clarity where you're like, oh my God, these kids are really young.
Oh, yeah.
So I talked to Gabe, who's been the quote unquote old guy on the beat for forever, because there's a lot of young people that work on the Mizzou beat over the years. And I was talking to him and I was like, dude, I get it now. It used to be him and Dave Matter that were the true pros around the team every day on the beat writer side of things that you could go to, ask any questions, but they're there to get their job done, right? We're there because we're students and we're stupid and we ask bad questions and all of these different things. They're there because they're pros. So I talked to Gabe at the game on Saturday. I was like, dude, suddenly I understand. I get where you're coming from. It is a different world. They were talking about things that I didn't understand and frankly at times didn't really care about. And I'm not talking about when they were talking with me, just among themselves. It's wild, man.
Yep. I had
a different world.
I had one of those because I teach in the fall at Lindenwood every year in the communications department on the radio side. And I had a student last year, I'll never forget, came up to me after one of the classes we were doing in person, and he goes, "Hey man," he's like, "I just want to tell you, I love listening to you on the radio." And that's, I just take that as I appreciate it and probably listen now.
Yeah.
He goes, "No, me and my dad used to listen to you all the time on KMOX on Cardinals when I was 8. I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And then it hits you, it's like, "Oh yeah.
Been doing this a minute now.
I did that 11 years ago. Makes sense." I'm like, "Oh, cool. Appreciate it, man. I'm only 34, though."
It hits you.
Yeah.
It hit because you go from being the young guy on the beat.
I still feel like that guy when I'm at Blues games.
Sure, because that is and I don't mean this as any disrespect, I promise you, that is an older demographic of guys that are covering the team, right?
It's JR and Lou that have been there for the longest time.
Whereas for Mizzou, Bradford, you've been out there. It's a whole lot of dudes that are younger than me now covering the team, and Gabe. And that's kind of the way that it is cut off. So it's, it was the first time that I've been at Mizzou covering a game in a minute. And to be the old guy now on the beat was a weird thing to experience.
Next birthday for you, buddy. I'll buy you a cane or a walker.
Yeah,
and you
I
have
appreciate that. Coming up in 15 minutes, the Cardinals say they want Ivan Herrera to catch again. Should he go back behind the plate? We'll get into that in a little bit. NFL weekend wrap up next here on 101 ESPN.
Old man, my ass.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
All right, it's time for our NFL weekend wrap-up alongside Alex and Bradford on BK. T-Bone out today. He's too sad about his Illinois Fighting Illini getting whooped on Saturday, and the Rams losing in dramatic fashion yesterday. All right, Alex, let's start out with this. Team that surprised you the most in a good way over the weekend was blank.
Ooh, there's a couple of them, but I think the one that surprised me the most would have been the Chiefs.
In a good way?
Yeah, in a good way. Mostly because the Giants' defense is at least capable. Like, I thought that the Chiefs were going to struggle in that game. Now, not saying they were world beaters, but it was keeping your head above water, and they found a way to at least create more offense than what I originally expected. So, not saying that I didn't believe in them, but I at least felt a more positive about them in terms of biding their time to get Worthy and Rice back than what I did previously.
I'm going to say Chicago, simply because this team had looked so putrid in divisional battles to begin the season versus Minnesota, versus Detroit, and hadn't won a home game, guys, in almost a calendar year. Look, when you expect this team, when you envisioned it, under Ben Johnson to be cooking from an offensive standpoint. Caleb Williams, no, he's not going to throw for 4 touchdowns each and every week, but spreading the ball around, Missouri's own Luther Burden in the third, not just the flea flicker touchdown, getting over 100 yards. DJ Moore, yes, but by the same token, 8 different pass catchers on just 19 completions. This is a start, granted, against a very bad Dallas defense, but it's a step in the right direction regardless.
Hey, how about the Commanders? Commanders would be my choice here. I was surprised in a good way that they were able to put up that kind of offense against the Raiders. I know the Raiders' defense isn't very good, but you're without your starting quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Marcus Mariota is in the game, and he just goes out there and basically picks up where Jaden Daniels had left off. The infrastructure for the Commanders is better than I've given it credit for. I think of them as being a true quarterback-led team. That's a pretty decent team overall, man. So I'll give them the credit that they deserve. 2-1 coming off of that win over the weekend. They didn't just beat the Raiders. They beat them pretty handily. So I'll go with them as my team that surprised me the most in a good way. What about the team that surprised you the most in a bad way? They left you with a disappointed taste in your mouth.
I think this is probably going to be obvious for everyone, but mine's the Falcons.
What the hell was that,
That's embarrassing. Like, Stoltz, what the hell, man? Like, I gave your team credit last week. I was thinking, like, hey, you know what? Falcons might have something cooking. Their quarterback seems like he's good. Defensively, they seem like they're a sound team. Defense was just embarrassed by Carolina. And offense, Penix got sat for Kirk Cousins. Like, that was a come to Jesus moment for me of, like, don't buy into some of these teams. And Atlanta, you've fallen victim to it.
They change out their kicker. Their kicker promptly goes 0 for 2 in this one, and then the offense just never gets going. That was more about their offense than it was anything that the Panthers were doing that was overwhelming them. The Panthers didn't do much offensively. They finished the game overall with 225 yards. It wasn't as if they were moving the ball consistently, but the Falcons consistently just handed them the football. They're like, here, Michael Penix, let's throw another pick. Here's 1, here's 2. It was baffling. I did not see that one coming. That's my answer for this as well. Did you have somebody different, Bradford?
A little bit, actually. Yeah, it's Cincinnati, because I didn't expect the Bengals to necessarily prevail there in Minnesota, but to get walloped by 38, losing at one point in that ball game by 40-plus points, and being completely ill-prepared to come out from an offensive standpoint. We've talked about how the Chiefs can't run the ball by any measure whatsoever. How about the Bengals right now when you need to rely more on a Chase Brown? 10 carries yesterday for 3 yards, consistently just running into a wall, and Jake Browning didn't even look as competent as he was a couple of seasons ago when filling in for Burrow for 7 games. This team is in a world of hurt. You have to make an acquisition to hope to salvage that season.
I've got one other that I'll throw into the mix since we both went on Atlanta. The Arizona Cardinals. If you can't win that game, how can I possibly take you seriously as a contender?
I was done with them after week 1 when you almost lost to the Saints.
So that's the thing. Like, your wins so far this year, and I know the Panthers won yesterday, but the Panthers and the Saints, that's your 2 wins so far this year. You have a chance to start the season 3-0, and you've got the Tennessee Titans coming up in week 5. You could easily start 4-1 or 5-0 if you take care of business against Mac Jones, who, by the way, re-aggravated his knee injury about halfway through this one. They do not have their number 1 receiver. They do not have, speaking of the 49ers, their number 1 tight end. They didn't have in this game Nick Bosa for most of it because he also got hurt. If you can't win that one, I can't take you seriously in the NFC West. Everybody in that division is better than the Arizona Cardinals right now. So kudos to the 49ers. They found a way once again. They're now 3-0, despite Brock Purdy missing this one. They're set up pretty well right now. But the Arizona Cardinals, I can't take that team seriously. It just continues to be the same story over and over with Kyler Murray at the helm. All right, Alex, who was a player that you watched over the weekend that you left saying to yourself, hot damn, that was an impressive performance by that guy?
I don't know if it was just that week, but it just adds on to more and more of how I feel, and it's Daniel Jones. And I'm with you to where it's like, look, I want to see what you do against the Rams. But here's the thing. We saw Sam Darnold do this last year to where it's like, hey, you put him in a good system. He's actually a capable quarterback compared to where he was. And I think that's Daniel Jones. I saw the stat earlier today. He has more touchdowns himself than the New York Giants have this season. He has scored 6 of them in terms of throwing and rushing, and the Giants have 5 total touchdowns. Like, it wasn't just that week that was impressive, although once again, it still felt like he was commanding the field. It's just in general of where I'm at every week where I'm like, damn, maybe Daniel Jones actually just got a really short end of the straw for his first few years when he was with the Giants.
Yeah, BK, I mentioned that to you in the office before the show. The fact that Daniel Jones has led the Colts to 103 points, something Peyton Manning never was able to do during any 3-game stretch to begin a season, absolutely crazy. But I'm going here back to that Minnesota-Cincinnati game because Isaiah Rodgers had an all-timer of a performance defensively, talking about getting into the end zone twice with the interception, forcing a pair of fumbles. And for somebody to have gone from a nomadic status, all right, in the NFL, he was a 6th-round pick back in 2020, suspended for the entirety of 2023 before actually latching on and winning a Super Bowl with the Eagles. But somebody who seems to be tailor-made for this Brian Flores system, and it was on full display yesterday. Maybe you uncover this diamond in the rough because you know what you have up front. Now, if you can build on the back 7 as well, Minnesota, signature defensive performance yesterday.
I would go with Cam Scatterbo. What he did last night, that looked like what he was in college. And everybody that was an NFL scout, that was quoted anonymously going into this year's draft, and then clearly they meant it because they waited for forever to draft him. He wasn't a top 100 selection. They all said, hey, he's too slow, doesn't translate to the NFL. What he does in college won't work. Chiefs are a pretty good tackling team defensively. They've got their warts, don't get me wrong, but they do pretty well at tackling. That dude made Nick Bolton look bad. He broke down in one-on-one. Bolton attempts to go with his typical and he just bulldozed over him. So Cam Scatterbo showed me a little something yesterday. He should be the number 1 running back moving forward. Tracy also got hurt in the game. So he's somebody that I don't like the offense he's on. They just don't score a whole lot of points.
They don't like the offense they're on.
But he is somebody that, especially a couple of weeks from now against New Orleans, you might want him in your starting lineup in fantasy football. He's, if nothing else, he's fun to watch.
Yeah, if only that team would just, do what everybody's waiting for them to do and sit Russell Wilson and play Jackson Dart.
I think that's coming against New Orleans.
Yeah, when Malik Neighbors has 3 targets in one half, you got a problem.
All right, last thing here. Is there any team in particular, Alex, that you still are puzzled over?
Yeah, this one's easy for me. It's the Broncos. I'm still being told by people that the Broncos are a playoff team, and I don't know how. Yeah, that was a competitive game. You know what? You held the Chargers back, but there were so many empty possessions by Denver in that game that they should have put the Chargers away, and they didn't. And that's back-to-back games where it's 50-50, and the Broncos are on the sour end of it. How is this supposed to be a playoff team if every 50-50 game I look at, I'm just assuming you're going to lose? So I'm still confused because people keep telling me that Bo Nix is a good quarterback. They've got a great defense. They're going to be a playoff team. I get it. AFC's top-heavy, and that's a about it. But, man, Broncos just do not look like a playoff team.
BK, unlike you, I'm still a little confused, I think, by Washington because I didn't know what to do with the body of work through the first 2 weeks of the season. And then yesterday, granted, against Vegas, you go out and you run for 174 yards in the first half. And mind you, behind a reconfigured offensive line, you bench a pair of guards there. You're doing it with Mariota at the helm. Jaden Daniels is out. Eckler isn't even there. So I don't know offensively exactly what to expect from this team moving forward. Now, yesterday, obviously, a step there in the right direction, but the seesaw nature, what we've seen so far in 25, I'm just wondering what comes in week 4.
This is going to sound weird. Can my answer be no? Not really. I feel like we've got a pretty good handle on these teams now. I think you know who the best teams are in the NFC, and I don't know that there's like a big argument against it. I think the Eagles, the Commanders, those two teams from the NFC East, and then the Packers, the Bucks, the 49ers, and the Rams. I think those are your top 6 teams in the NFC right now.
I'd put the Lions in there, too.
Sure. Throw the Lions into the mix. We'll see them tonight, see how they kind of stack up against the Ravens as well. There's your top 7.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear who the worst teams in the conference are right now. It's the Cowboys, it's the Giants, it's the Saints. Those 3 are the bottom feeders currently. And the AFC side of things, I also think it's pretty clear. Dude, the entire AFC East outside of the Bills stinks. They're all bad. Now, there's degrees of bad within those 3 individual teams, but they're all bad. The AFC North, everybody outside of the Baltimore Ravens is bad.
Yeah.
There's degrees of bad again, but they're all bad. The AFC South, Texans are trash.
Yep.
We learned that over the weekend. They're horrible. That's not a playoff team. They've still got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Titans, really bad. So I don't actually feel as though there are many teams across the NFL right now that we don't have a great grasp for. That can change in individual weeks. The Packers lost this week against the Browns. That doesn't mean they're bad. They had a really bad week, though, and that happens in the league. It's why the Pick'em Challenge is so damn hard every single week. But right now, I think we already have a pretty good grasp on who the good and the bad teams are in the NFL.
Yeah, the problem in the AFC, though, is the bad that you're talking about, which I agree with. Like 5 of those teams have to be in the playoffs. So somebody has to be better than most of the bad, and that's where I really question.
Bills, Ravens, Colts right now I would
Chiefs.
throw into this mix. Chiefs, Chargers, probably Jags.
And see, that's where I'd start to get to the question.
You have one other team that has to get in, and this is where, as I mentioned last week, go ahead and bury the Chiefs at your own risk. Because as you look across the AFC, find me the 7 AFC playoff teams that you think will get in ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a really difficult thing to do, even though I fully acknowledge this team has not played particularly well through the first 3 weeks. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into a game of in or out. But next, the Cardinals say that they would like Ivan Herrera to catch again next year. Should he? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care who've been making people comfortable since 1926. When it comes to your HVAC system, your furnace, this is that time of the year where it needs a tune-up. It needs to be checked out because it went from 70 degrees to 100 degrees back down to 70 degrees. It's a lot of work for your air conditioner depending on the age, which is where this maintenance program comes into play. Twice a year, the springtime, the fall, you have Classic Air Care come out. They're knowledgeable technicians who have over 30 years of experience. They'll come out, check the unit, fine-tune it, clean it, make sure it's good to go to get you through the upcoming seasons that you're dealing with. And right now, they've got a super tune-up, which takes care of both your AC and your furnace for $149 in the month of September. And what's cool about that is if issues pop up at some point, you're a part of that maintenance agreement, you get priority scheduling with Classic Air Care. Super easy to use. Customer service is incredible. You've got knowledgeable technicians. All of it falls under the umbrella of Classic Air Care, taking care of your family's home. Call them today. Schedule online. Just do me a favor and tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. That's Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
This is the story of the one. As a
St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Oh, as this ball is crushed. Boy, does he know how to put a camper on the moment. 2-run homer.
Alongside Alex and Bradford on BK. So that was Ivan Herrera's homer over the weekend, audio courtesy of FanDuel Sports Midwest. Alex, he's finishing well this season. He's got his OPS over 800 for the season. He's been, I think you can make a pretty strong argument, your best hitter in 2025 when healthy this year. And next year, it appears he might have a position change back to where we started out this season.
Because, of course.
Which is behind the plate. Ollie Marmol telling reporters yesterday the plan after he and Chaim Bloom met with Ivan Herrera is for Herrera to get back behind the plate in 2026. That will take place after Herrera has some loose bodies removed from his elbow, which is, according to Herrera, something that has bothered him for like 3 years now and apparently has limited his throwing ability. So now they're finally going to get this thing cleaned up.
3 years to take care of this?
I guess they were trying to avoid surgery if possible, and now it's like, okay, well, if we're going to have you be catcher, this is the thing that we have to do. Alex, I'm sure everybody will have their own opinion on this. My personal opinion on the matter is as follows. If he can be a below average defender, not even good, just below average but passable defender, I think this is probably the right play with Ivan Herrera. And the reason why I feel that way is because I think this season, while it's been impressive what he's done at the plate as a hitter, he hasn't shown like superstar level abilities. And so if you are somebody that has the 800 to 850 OPS, that's the general range you're going to be in, that behind the plate, huge asset. That as a full-time DH, merely a good hitter. Good player, helpful piece, doesn't put you over the top, and it's more replaceable than getting that kind of production as a catcher while also being able to put like an Alec Burleson as a designated hitter or Nolan Gorman as a designated hitter or just somebody else that you bring in, whoever the next version of JD Martinez that becomes available that's $20 million a year whenever they're trying to contend again. That guy can now be a DH for you, and you could just add in one more big bat to the lineup. It helps a lot when you can get this kind of a bat behind the plate because there are so few of them. There are only 4 qualified catchers in all of Major League Baseball this year that have an OPS of 800 or better. So if you can make it work back there, I think it makes a lot of sense to do so. Where do you fall on this?
I mean, I agree with everything you said because when you see it, it's like, yeah, that makes the most sense because this team's got to figure out how to get most of these pieces in their lineup. And Herrera being the catcher opens up more possibilities. I guess it was just confusion as well because I'm being told one thing throughout the season of how much the manager prefers to have a guy who can work well with the pitcher and knows the pitcher, preps the right way, and can be a really good defensive backstop. And that's what his priority is. But we're going to go back to Herrera because that's what they need right now. Like, it's back to that kind of like dual messaging. But I guess if you look at it, where the Cardinals are at, and if they're headed towards this rebuild, I'm not as concerned about the defense behind the plate.
Exactly.
But you're also worried about the development of pitchers. And how does that work if you don't trust the catcher behind the plate for the pitchers that are on the mound?
Yeah, I think it's overstated a little bit. I think a lot of this is the veterans appear to be the ones that had the problem with this stuff behind the plate, right? The young guys seemingly haven't had any issues with it. Like, he was already catching Andre Palante. We saw some of the young guys. Fair, he's had his issues with everybody.
But he caught Matthew Liberatore. Did he catch McGreevy at all? Like, when McGreevy was up here, that was already done.
I don't think so. Yeah, he was already done from behind the plate at that point in time. But we've seen these guys, McGreevy, Libby, Palante, they've worked with some of these young catchers. So, yeah, keep them going with them. And if it's that big of a problem, well, then, yeah, remove him from behind the plate. And if he can't end up being a catcher, it is what it is. But if Sonny's going to get traded this offseason, and if Michaelis isn't going to return, and you don't have Eric Fetty back next year, well, you're going to have mostly young guys that are a part of your rotation. Let's build around all of the young guys. Yeah. Let's grow together, right? Hey, yes, there's going to be some stuff, some moments where you'd like better game calling from Ivan Herrera. Well, how does he get better at that? By doing it.
Yeah.
You have to go out and actually try to work yourself through those situations. It's different when you have a coach that you're going through the game plan together. You can always lean on that coach. When you're in the game and you're actually going through this with your pitcher and it's just you out there, it's up to you to make the adjustments in between pitches, in between at-bats, all of these different things. So that's where you find out whether or not he's going to be capable of doing so. Hey, man, if 2026 is going to be a true rebuilding season, then you should get him behind the plate to find out once and for all if he's capable of doing so. And if you find out the answer is no, much like the answer was no on many of your players that you tried to build around this year, well, then he can be an outfielder. He can be a DH. He can be a first baseman. You can figure that out as you go along. But for next year, it makes sense to be a catcher.
Yeah, and it's important, too. Like, I don't know what their offseason moves are going to be, but you imagine Lars Nootbaar isn't going to be here. Probably Brendan Donovan not going to be here. Nolan Arenado going to be gone. With Herrera behind the plate, you don't have to try and figure out where some of these guys are falling into place. There's a lot more openings for these players that you're working on, specifically guys like J.J. Weatherholt, Nolan Gorman if he's still here, Jordan Walker if he's still here. It makes the most sense to put Herrera, and this was my argument for the longest time with Wilson Contreras, because people didn't like him. He wasn't good defensively. It's like, man, work through it. Get him to figure out how to approach it. Now, I know the Cardinals in their minds thought they could be contenders at the time, which is why it didn't work. But for Herrera, you still got plenty of time for him to figure it out. What will be interesting is the development of the other catchers and what they opt to do that one. But for next year, this makes the most sense, and then you adjust when you get the next catcher who's ready.
That's the one that I find to be interesting on that is, okay, what does this mean for Pedro Pajes? And I'm not saying like it's a big deal, but is he going to be your backup catcher now?
Imagine, and Crooks just goes back to the minors.
Yeah, and that to me feels like a... Do you really need Crooks to go back down to the minor? Does Crooks now become a trade piece?
Yeah.
Is Pajes somebody that you can consider trading
You've
this
got
offseason?
Rodriguez, you've got Bernal, and both of those guys, because Bernal's at AA too, correct?
Yep.
So you got two guys at
move him up
Springfield.
next year. You would bump him up to AAA.
Rodriguez
probably
stays in
have
double.
Rodriguez stay at AA for next year.
Yeah.
And
maybe Pajes becomes trade bait, though. And I don't know how much value there is, but you saw his bat in the second half. You know he's good defensively. Maybe he's the one that you ship out and you tell Jimmy Crooks you're the backup this year.
Yeah, it's Herrera and Crooks. There's no backstop, no pun intended, with anybody else that's potentially on the horizon. Those are your guys.
Yep.
And you make it work next year. That's entirely possible. I like the decision. I think it's smart. I liked the decision this year to back away from it because of all of the injuries, to find out how does the bat play. That's really the most important thing with Herrera. And it was legit. By the end of the season, he's going to be above an 800 OPS. He's, based upon his current pace, like a 25-ish home run guy.
Yeah.
If you look at it over the course of the entirety of the season, in 197 big league games, he has 22 homers and 92 RBI. That's a little more than a full season of at-bats. That's a really good hitter, man. You're building something here. And now we find out what's the ceiling for Herrera would be him figuring it out behind the plate.
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario.
Get to a Will Smith territory.
Yeah, and now you're talking about somebody that can really be a building block for you. If he can't figure it out, fine, but you might as well exhaust that possibility first in a season that we all know is probably not going to go great for them.
And what's good about this, too, is like if Ali and Heim have made this decision, then the conversation with Herrera is probably, look, you're the guy. There's no more of this back and forth. You're going to be it. So get your preparation in order and get healthy because we're not backing away from this.
The bat just plays so much better at catcher than it does at DH. Again,
in the outfield.
Yeah. If you look at it compared to the other, like if Ivan Herrera is about 25% above league average this year offensively. Among qualified catchers, that would have been third. If you're looking at that compared to qualified DHs across Major League Baseball, it would have been 13th. If you're looking at it compared to qualified outfielders this year, would have been 14th. So there's just a huge difference between how the bat plays behind the plate versus how it plays in some of the other positions that he could otherwise play. All right, he's Alex. That's Bradford. I'm BK. T-Bone out today. He's too sad about Illinois and the Rams both losing. We'll see if we can get him back in with us tomorrow to go through some of the big losses that he had to endure over the weekend. Coming up next, In or Out here on 101 ESPN.
Make your picks for this week's Fastlane Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. Show off your football knowledge and see if you can top the Fastlane and the dudes from the Rizzuto show on the point for this week's top score. The top scorer each week scores a Bud Light NFL cooler stocked with 101 ESPN and point swag. It's the Fastlane and the Riz Show throwing down all football season long in the Pick'em Challenge. Enter your picks for this week now at 101ESPN.com.
The Fastlane Pick'em Challenge is refreshed by Bud Light, official beer of the NFL. Easy to Sunday, easy to enjoy. Enjoy responsibly. Get social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Giants welcome Redbirds to the Bay. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Tonight at 8:45 in San Francisco, the Giants will host St. Louis. The Cardinals having taken 2 of 3 from Milwaukee in the final home series of 2025. Michael McGreevy and Justin Verlander, your mound matchup there. Tonight, NFL-wise, we have Detroit as well as Baltimore. Monday Night Football. Both of those squads are 1-1. On the hockey front, the Blues off until Saturday when it comes to preseason action. Over the weekend, dropped both games versus Dallas and Columbus, respectively. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Come on, man. Are you in or are you out? It's in or out with BK and Ferrario.
(314-399-9646) is the Your Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, let's start out with this one. In or out, Dabo Swinney will still be the head coach of the Clemson Tigers in 3 years.
I have to say out because just his style doesn't seem like it's going to work. And I mean, God, you talk about being a miserable program right now where Clemson's at. So I don't know how you stick with that if you continue to underperform. Did I see this right, that it's the worst he's been at home in the last 3 years, like in his entire career?
Through 4 games. It's the first time that he's been 1-3.
Yeah. I don't see how you can make that another 3 years. I think he makes it through this season, but if it's an underwhelming one, I think you move on.
Yeah, I think next season he's there in place. You have a brand new quarterback. Maybe that's a great thing. We have no idea who it's going to be. But if you're asking me if he can actually stay there for another 2-3 years, I don't think so. The constant reluctance to embrace this new era, this new age, Clemson's not going anywhere. Clemson is totally stagnant right now.
That's the thing. You have to adapt. If he's willing to adapt, you can still make it work. There have been coaches that have been slow to adapt and then eventually they figure it out. But it seems as though it's getting worse, not better, at Clemson right now under Dabo Swinney. This team's too talented for them to be this bad. And that's part of this as well. I wonder if there is a coordinator situation that could be changed that maybe helps you influx a little bit of life. They shouldn't be this bad. Even with the way that they're constructed and the way that he's brushed aside the transfer portal, NIL, all of those different things, they've got talent. Everybody in America agrees on that. And yet still they're finding ways to lose against teams that they should be better than. Alex, so I think that he will be back in 3 years. I don't know that he should be, but I think he will be back in 3 years.
That's sad.
That's the kind of guy that I don't know if you can tell him to go away, man. It's a weird situation at Clemson. He's the winningest coach that they've had.
Yeah, yep, I agree with you there. In or out, boys, Logan Mailloux will play more this season with Broberg than Tyler Tucker.
Out. I think that you'll still see Justin Falk in that spot. I think next year is when you see maybe a change in that regard.
I'm with you there as well. I think that's the pairing, the initial one you referenced there as well. What was your assessment of the first dose you saw from Mailloux, by the way, over the weekend?
That's why I said that, because I'm in. I think by December, you're going to see that be a consistent pair, and they'll adjust Falk and Tucker. Not saying the ice time will be different. Like, I think you just do that platoon thing where late in the game you'll see Falk and Broberg more. But, man, watching those two skate together, smooth, fast, both jumped up into the rush offensively, I think those two can be what the future looks like. And it would not surprise me if halfway through the season we see them as a pair.
So when the SEC's new 9-game schedule rolls out next year, per multiple reports, Mizzou's annual opponents, now bear this in mind, for the next 4 seasons, not forever, not permanent forever, will be Arkansas, Oklahoma, and drumroll please, Texas A&M.
That didn't deserve a
the Hogs and the Sooners, they seemed inevitable, okay? But in or out on A&M, not South Carolina, not somebody else, the Aggies being that third common foe for Mizzou.
I hate it. Everything about it, I hate it.
I don't get it. What's the
Big
rivalry?
12 tie. It's the Big 12 tie.
Cool, but that was like 10 years ago?
Yeah,
that's OU. That's supposed to be OU.
In the last 10 years, I think it is. Meanwhile, Mizzou has played South Carolina every year since 2012. South Carolina was the move. I think this has got to be about competitive balance. So they wanted a quote-unquote better team on Missouri's schedule year to year. Texas A&M would qualify in that regard. And meanwhile, South Carolina gets Kentucky instead of Missouri. So if they needed somebody that's a little weaker and Missouri needed somebody that was a little better on their schedule, I understand how you come here. But, man, South Carolina has been... If you're looking at like competitive rivalries, they've been that team for Mizzou. They're peer programs in the conference. You've got a trophy technically on the line when they play in this game for the Mayor's Cup. It's just a series that I always enjoy. It's a game that I look forward to. And the fact that Missouri will only play them at most twice over the next 4 years, I think that's a bummer. I think that's a mistake by the SEC. And as a Missouri fan, I also don't want to play Texas A&M each of the next 4 years. Playing them is not a fun time. They've got a really good coach down there. I don't think that is necessarily a series that goes over particularly well. And I don't want to make that trip. If I'm a Mizzou fan, that's not a place that I'm all that interested in going to see a game. Whereas some of these other potential options, I would have been more interested.
Just jealous of their barbecue, aren't you? Thinking that they got better barbecue now.
No, I just don't want to go to College Station. Not a place that I am all that interested in traveling to. So,
I am out for all of the reasons. Not only traveling to Kyle Field more consistently, Mike Elko, he's there for the long haul, certainly. Mirror programs. We've talked about it on the show, right, guys? Since Mizzou basically joined forces, joined up in the SEC, that has been your most common opponent. It's been the rivalry matchup per se. Just hate it. Hate it.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. We're going to go quick hitter style. We've got about 3 minutes. I messed up the clock today. We're going to make sure that we get into the next show on time. Alex, in or out from Merp the Barbarian, Army will make another trade before the end of the 2025 season.
Oh, in.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. If they're somewhat competitive, I could see them adding to this team.
Just a little tweak. In.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Guys, in or out with how badly Illinois got beat over the weekend, T-Bone should do the pick'em punishment no matter what because of that loss.
I wish he would have made that the three-point play this week like he did last week. He was so confident. Yeah, I'm in.
I'm out.
He's going to do the punishment anyway.
In or out, Ahmad Hardy is a legitimate Heisman candidate at this point in the season.
You don't lead the SEC, 4 weeks into the season and not be into that conversation. So absolutely in.
Second in all of college football, first among Power 5 running backs in rushing yards so far this year. Conversation, yes. Leading candidate, no. There are others that are above him in that regard. But yes, he should be a candidate right now. I think I saw somebody posted earlier on one site, he's not listed. On another site, he's 60-1 odds right now to win the Heisman.
He's in for sure. 200-yard games. He already has 3 of them in his young college career. Crazy.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. Guys, in or out, the return to prominence for the Cardinals will hinge completely on Chaim Bloom's ability to find the next Albert Pujols. Out. You're not going to find the next Albert Pujols. If it is, they're screwed.
Yeah, if you're looking for the next Albert, you might as well just chalk it up as just being bad in another rebuild 5 years from now.
Totally out. How about developing that pitching pipeline as much as possible? That's where I'm going.
And how about you acquire some talent via trade?
He's Alex. That's Bradford. I'm BK. The Rewind is next here on 101 ESPN.
The NHL preseason is on ESPN. Saturday, Blues and Blackhawks. Pregame at 5, puck drop at 6. This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. Back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
If you guys have missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is always sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app, super easy to use. It is free to download, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. I would give today's show 9.8.
Wow.
Only to be better if T-Bone was here.
That would have been a 10.
In his misery. But we get to experience that tomorrow. So today we get to have all of our good conversations, and we got to talk about Mizzou without anybody poo-pooing on it the way that T-Bone would have. So I enjoyed that, and we still get to give T-Bone all of the crap tomorrow.
I was thinking a 9.5. It was a great show, and nothing against Bradford. I love when I see Bradford, but man, I would have liked to see T-Bone cry on a Monday.
It would have been fun.
It would have kicked it off. So, yeah, I'd give it a 9.5, though. I mean, we touched on everything today. That's a good day.
Fair enough. I'll go with the 9 because I expected better out of myself. Alex, I promised as much for you in the vocab department. I let you down.
That's true. I didn't get a big word from you at all, but we've got more this week.
Tomorrow, we will be joined by Jeremy Rutherford to talk all things St. Louis Blues. We will also be joined, of course, by our guy, Tanner Hendrickson. He's going to be back in with us. He'll talk about the Illini. He'll talk about the Rams loss.
I'll bring the tissues.
Yeah, we'll get into all of that with him. But to begin our rewind today, Alex, we begin where we began today's show, which is with Ahmad Hardy. He's putting himself into some rare company right now. He has 458 rushing yards after first contact on the season. To put that in context, there are only 5 other running backs in all of college football that have more than 450 rushing yards total, including before and after contact. Only 2 of those are Power 5 runners. Ahmad Hardy has been an absolute sensation. If you're looking at where Mizzou has been able to have their success this season, it's on the ground. They're one of the best running teams in the country. They're one of the best run defenses in the country as well. They've got stuff to get fixed and to get ironed out, most notably their pass defense. And Drink made mention of that certainly after the game. What did you make of Ahmad Hardy's performance on Saturday?
I mean,
Alex?
he's pure entertainment. And, you know, Luther Burden was this couple of years ago to where it was like you were waiting for that game-breaking moment that just got you on the edge of your seat. Ahmad Hardy, I feel like, has had that every week, but this past Saturday against South Carolina was like the icing on the cake, just him breaking a tackle and staying on his feet, and I don't know how he did it. He's entertainment. Mizzou's got all of the elements right now that makes for a team that could really make some noise for a potential playoff run. It just comes down to how consistent and can you fix your warts that we've seen.
I posed this question to you, BK, before the show. Over under this coming weekend for carries for Hardy, 10.5. And I say that because now maybe that Heisman narrative, all that's coming into play. You have to account for that.
Yeah, I'm still taking the under.
I would go over.
You'd go over?
I'd go over. Unless he gets like 100 plus on 10 runs. Like now you got the Heisman, and now it's like, yeah, no, I need my accolades right now too.
I like game one numbers. I just think that they've got bigger. This is not a team right now that's playing for numbers. This is a team that's playing for team accomplishments. And the best way to accomplish those goals is to have Ahmad Hardy healthy 2 weeks from now when you take on Alabama. That's the game you've got to be pointing to, not getting 200 yards against the Minutemen of UMass.
It's the mighty Minutemen.
Illinois, we'll break this down a little bit further tomorrow, but man, just a brutal loss in every possible way. Got outworked. Defensively, they had 0 answers. Offensively, the O-line just got wrecked from start to finish. And it went all the way to special teams where you give up that punt block for a touchdown. Just never in the game. And then on the Cardinals side of things, Alex, reacting to this weekend, biggest storylines, we talked about the Ivan Herrera stuff with Katie Wu. Just talked about that as well. So if you missed any of that, check it out on the podcast page. Arenado and John Mozeliak both getting their send-off over the weekend. It was just sad. It was sad. It wasn't a full stadium. Arenado, this future Hall of Famer, goes in the game, and then he walks off the field, and everybody's kind of confused. There's no real interest in it at first, and finally he gets the ovation and everything. For Mo, I did like the symbolism that Katie mentioned of him going in there, throwing out the first pitch. He used to be a BP guy, so I liked that. But, man, for 2 guys that meant so much, for Mo, the long extended time here in St. Louis, and then for Arenado, the way that he came here and the hype surrounding it, to go out this way is just disappointing, man.
Yeah, it is. And unfortunately for those individuals, failure is just going to follow them with their Cardinals narrative, more so Arenado than John Mozeliak. And I know a lot of people were texting him when we were talking about it, saying like, oh, we are so wrong. They enjoyed getting to watch a Hall of Famer play for the Cardinals. Man, that's great. But there were so much higher expectations with Nolan Arenado, and he was part of the problem, underperforming in the playoffs. I think the dust will settle further down the road with John Mozeliak, and people will appreciate what he did. Not to the same level of Walt Jocketty, but people will appreciate Mo. Arenado, unfortunately, is going to be followed by that dark cloud of failure while he was here.
Yeah, it's unlike really any other Hall of Fame player that's played for the Cardinals in a really long time. Yeah. None that I can recall that had this much excitement, this much hope, this much belief in what they could ultimately be, and then just leave. And it's almost as if there was just one season that you look back on fondly.
The only one that I feel like you could go to is maybe McGuire, but he had such a big moment that you don't care about the team missing the playoffs those years.
He's Alex. That's Bradford. I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys again tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Tune in every Friday from 11 to 2 as BK and Ferrario broadcast live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. And presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea.